The esports tournament for the game Glory is hotter than ever. For the past 10 years, the game has shown no signs of cooling down. In fact, its popularity continues to soar. The bosses in the game can sometimes be unstoppable monsters, but other times, they are merely punching bags for practice. For average players, they are the nightmares of the final stages. However, for our protagonist, Ye Xiu, they are nothing more than a pile of experience points waiting to be collected. Known by netizens as a top-tier gamer due to his extraordinary keyboard skills, Ye Xiu, under the in-game alias Ye Xiu, has battled alongside his team in world-class professional tournaments. Under his leadership, the Excellent Era team has claimed the championship title for 3 consecutive seasons. Because of this, industry insiders have crowned him the battle god, One Autumn Leaf. One evening, a girl with blonde hair is seen running anxiously toward a destination. It turns out she is the highly synchronized teammate of the battle god, Ye Xiu. Upon her arrival, he quickly logs off and steps out to handle some business with her. The two are currently in a meeting with the manager of the Excellent Era team. The manager gleefully welcomes Ye Xiu and urges him to take a seat. But Ye Xiu shows no interest and tells him to get straight to the point. Hearing this, the manager announces that Sun Xiang, a newcomer, will be taking over Ye Xiu's position as team captain. The girl, in disbelief, wants to demand an explanation, but Ye Xiu quickly pulls her back. Meanwhile, a highly arrogant Sun Xiang issues a mock apology to Ye Xiu for taking the captain's seat so soon after arriving. The team members beside him, despite having previously ridden on Ye Xiu's coattails for success, now dismiss him as a washed-up has-been. Not wanting to drag things out, the manager demands that Ye Xiu hand over his account card immediately. Knowing that regardless of what he says, he is being replaced, Ye Xiu steps forward and hands over the card he had painstakingly leveled up over many years. Sun Xiang remarks that if Ye Xiu's hands are trembling while handing over the card, he clearly can't continue playing. He tells Ye Xiu to go home and rest, claiming he will personally take over the task of bringing the battle god to the pinnacle of fame. Hearing this, Ye Xiu holds onto the card for a moment and asks Sun Xiang if he truly has a passion for the game. If he does, he should treat it as true glory, not just a tool for showing off. Finally, Ye Xiu advises the new captain to keep the card safe before turning his back to leave. The manager, wanting to provoke him, invites Ye Xiu to stay and practice with everyone. However, Ye Xiu coldly declines, stating he doesn't need to and wants to terminate his contract immediately. The manager is thrilled by this response, noting it is exactly the Ye Xiu he knows. Since Ye Xiu wants out, the manager suggests they move on to discuss the contract termination fee. However, acting outwardly grateful for Ye Xiu's contributions to Excellent Era over the past 3 years, the manager offers a compromise rather than being completely ruthless. He slides a contract over, stating that if Ye Xiu publicly announces his retirement, he will not have to pay the penalty fee. Glancing at the contract, Ye Xiu realizes this was a carefully premeditated trap, simply waiting for the day he was kicked off the team. His female companion urges him to stay calm and not make a hasty decision. Since Ye Xiu is 25 years old, announcing his retirement means he must wait a full year before he can return to the professional scene. She indignantly points out that they had targeted him from the very beginning, but Ye Xiu gently comforts Sumu Cheng, telling her not to be sad. He turns back, agrees to the terms, and signs the document, bringing the manager immense satisfaction. And just like that, glory no longer shines on Ye Xiu. He walks away alone into the freezing, snowy night. Sumu Cheng catches up and asks why he chose to retire when there were still other options. But Ye Xiu understands exactly where he currently stands within the club. Knowing he is no longer considered valuable, he believes leaving quietly is the best choice. Sumu Cheng refuses to accept this, knowing his skills are second to none and feeling he doesn't deserve such poor treatment. He simply pats her head and suggests they head back. Suddenly, she asks what he plans to do next. He calmly replies that he will take a year to rest before making a comeback to shake up the virtual world once again. Hearing this, she wipes away her tears and wishes Ye Xiu success. Meanwhile, Sun Xiang wonders why Ye Xiu would accept a condition that completely cuts off his own path of retreat. The manager finds it obvious. Even as the #1 player in Glory, Ye Xiu couldn't afford the breach of contract fee. He recounts that in the early days, professional gamers weren't as glamorous as they are now. Salaries were low, and if they lost, they earned almost nothing. Those players had no other skills besides playing games well. There were a few people like that around Ye Xiu, and he foolishly used his own money to support them. The manager considers Ye Xiu an incomprehensible person, someone who wants to embrace everything but refuses opportunities to make money. At this moment, Ye Xiu continues his lonely walk down the small street. In times like these, playing a few rounds of a game might ease his mind. Thus, Ye Xiu heads to an internet cafe named Happy and requests a computer. He walks over to his assigned station and acknowledges that this is a truly high-end cyber cafe. Suddenly, he notices a girl passionately immersed in her gaming. However, she is playing highly aggressively, constantly slamming the desk because she is being severely outplayed. She stands up, offers her seat to Ye Xiu, and tells him to take over because she is leaving. She assumes the person she just met must be an expert, as she cannot comprehend losing 52 consecutive matches like she just did. Suddenly, remembering she hasn't logged out, she rushes back. Upon arriving, she is shocked to see the victory screen displayed on the monitor. Ye Xiu apologizes, explaining that the match had already started when he sat down. He casually mentions that because the weather is cold, it took him 40 seconds to finish, whereas normally 30 seconds would be enough. Astounded, the girl wonders who this highly skilled young man is. Glancing at the excellent era building across the street, she speculates whether he might be a professional player. Realizing that the battle god, Ye Xiu, has never shown his face publicly, she becomes firmly convinced that the man before her is him. Just then, a staff member approaches and hands Ye Xiu his ID card, while she is thrilled at the prospect of being the first to get her idol Ye Xiu's autograph. She quickly borrows his ID to look at it, but realizes the name reads Ye Xiu, not Ye Xiu. She hands it back to him, disappointed that her hopes of meeting a major idol were dashed. Despite her impulsive demeanor, this woman, Chen Guo, is actually the owner of the establishment. Realizing this, Ye Xiu calls her back and asks if they are currently hiring. They are indeed looking for a night shift manager, and he feels he is a perfect fit for the role. She hastily points to a sign indicating that certain behaviors are banned here. Boss Chen says that if he wants to be the manager, that's fine, but he has to beat her in a 1v1 glory match first. Hearing this, Ye Xiu explains he has already given his account to someone else, so he can't play. Boss Chen is baffled by how incredibly generous a person could be to do that. However, Ye Xiu has no intention of quitting the game. Tonight, he plans to enter the 10th server to create a new character in Glory. He pulls out a first-generation login card, leaving Boss Chen completely shocked, as only players who have stuck with the game since its launch possess such an item. Ye Xiu has been playing Glory for nearly 10 years, making it an integral part of his youth. Hearing this, Boss Chen wonders just how passionate this guy is, considering she thought her own 5 years of playing was already impressive. She decides she will stay up all night with Ye Xiu. If he wants to work the night shift, he has to prove he can pass her endurance test first. Acting as his employer, Boss Chen hands Ye Xiu some money and tells him to run an errand and buy her some things since he has free time. At exactly midnight, Glory's 10th server is officially opened. Everyone counts down the final 10 seconds before the new server goes live. The moment the clock strikes 12, thousands of gamers log into the game, their keyboards clacking as they look to see what the new version has to offer. Boss Chen is thrilled because it has been a long time since Glory was this bustling. However, when she turns to Ye Xiu, she is surprised to see someone of his supposed high skill level reading the beginner's tutorial. He explains that it's been a long time since he read it, and he's just afraid he might have forgotten a few things. Boss Chen returns to her desk, labeling Ye Xiu as half-hearted. She laments that she thought she had met Ye Xiu, but instead just met a Ye Xiu. Hearing this, he asks if she knows that pro player. She proudly replies, "Of course! Who plays this game and doesn't know the battle god, Ye Xiu?" Boss Chen confidently boasts that he is the idol in her heart. Seeing her excited expression, Ye Xiu decides to tell her the truth. He is the battle god, Ye Xiu. But upon hearing this, Boss Chen sarcastically replies, "And I am Su Mucheng. Are you shocked?" Ye Xiu insists he is truly Ye Xiu, but she completely refuses to believe him, causing him to sigh. Boss Chen laughs in amusement and asks if he's done acting. She glances over at his character's name and notes that it sounds quite nice, asking him about it. He replies that Su Mucheng named it for him, asking again if she's shocked. Annoyed, Boss Chen tells Ye Xiu to stop talking nonsense. Immediately after logging into the game, Ye Xiu was surprised by how crowded it was, considering the server had just opened. Thus, the widely acclaimed battle god had now become a rookie who had to grind levels the hard way. Later, he stood in front of a building. Inside, Ye Xiu found an extremely rare item that brought back intense memories of his early gaming days. Although this weapon was only level 6, Ye Xiu believed this was more than enough to start. 3 hours had passed, so Ye Xiu went to wash his face to stay awake. However, upon stepping out, he saw Boss Chen sleeping soundly. Despite her earlier challenge to test his ability to stay up all night, he simply took his jacket and draped it over her to keep her warm. Afterward, Ye Xiu returned to his seat, continuing to grind and reclaim his glory. Seeing his equipment look decent after 3 hours of grinding, he decided to head into the forest to hunt a boss. However, this was a very powerful hidden boss named the Midnight Phantom Cat, so Ye Xiu chose to join a team to ensure victory. Just as he joined a party, someone was already shouting, telling the team to trust him and follow his lead for an easy night. Ye Xiu, preferring to type, used the chat to communicate, but the young man didn't like it and urged him to turn on his mic. Ye Xiu declined and typed that he was an expert starting a new account. Hearing this, the group gathered, saying they were rookies and asking for his guidance. However, a sword-wielding player named Sleeping Moon appeared, instantly drawing the rookies' admiration. He asked if the rookies wanted to follow a veteran to earn some rich rewards. The group immediately flattered him, calling Sleeping Moon a great god and acknowledging him as their boss. Ye Xiu was left speechless at this embarrassing display of flattery. At that moment, a system notification warned that the area had been taken over by the Midnight Phantom Cat. Sleeping Moon was thrilled that a boss had appeared so soon after entering the game. Seeing a chance to score premium loot, he told his underlings to prepare to gang up on it. From above, the Midnight Phantom Cat swooped down, cracking the ground with the sheer force of its impact. One of the youths hastily fired a shot at its head to attract its attention. Sleeping Moon was displeased, complaining that he hadn't even established aggro yet, and scolded the rookie for being hasty. In the game, aggro is based on the damage dealt to the boss. The higher the aggro, the more the boss focuses its attacks on that specific player. The Midnight Phantom Cat lunged at the youth, but he was lucky enough to be healed by Ye Xiu just in time. Wanting to show off his skills, Sleeping Moon charged forward with his sword, telling everyone to trust him. Sleeping Moon seemed overly aggressive, but his actual skill was definitely above average. He easily held off the Midnight Phantom Cat and urged his underlings to attack. However, the boss's speed was far too fast, and they only managed to land a few hits. It darted around the 4 players, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. Ye Xiu warned them of an attack from the right, which helped Sleeping Moon successfully block the incoming strike. However, aside from him, the other underlings were true beginners, and soon they became easy pickings for the Midnight Phantom Cat. The 3 underlings were wiped out effortlessly, leaving Sleeping Moon wondering why the boss felt so unusually difficult today. Now it was just him and Ye Xiu left, so he invited Ye Xiu to team up and defeat the boss together. But Ye Xiu calmly told Sleeping Moon he was on his own. Ye Xiu sat leisurely under a tree, casually watching as Sleeping Moon struggled to survive against the boss. Sleeping Moon desperately wanted Ye Xiu to buff and heal him, but Ye Xiu flatly refused. It turned out Ye Xiu had already seen through his true intentions. While the boss was chasing the other 3 players, Sleeping Moon had intentionally missed his attacks so his own aggro wouldn't spike, smoothly executing a plan to let his teammates die so he could monopolize the boss's loot. Ye Xiu praised the idea as quite clever, but noted that unfortunately, it had failed at the last second. Hearing this, Sleeping Moon swallowed his pride and begged Ye Xiu to heal him, promising to share half the rewards and experience if they succeeded. But Ye Xiu replied, "No thanks, I don't like half. I want it all." Saying that, Ye Xiu grabbed his weapon and charged forward, swinging with immense force that shook the surrounding forest. But after landing just 1 hit, he sat back down, leaving Sleeping Moon to defend himself once again. By now, Sleeping Moon was extremely low on health, while the Midnight Phantom Cat still had a full health bar. Putting on a shameless face, Sleeping Moon pleaded for cooperation. However, Ye Xiu said he wasn't interested and continued to watch as Sleeping Moon got utterly beaten down. Sleeping Moon threatened him, asking if Ye Xiu knew how powerful his guild was. Ye Xiu just sat there watching Sleeping Moon's health stats, waiting for him to die. Sleeping Moon told him to remember his face and swore that he would get his revenge. Right after, he was killed by the Midnight Phantom Cat and sent back to the respawn point in utter frustration. Smiling, Ye Xiu picked up his weapon and directly challenged the Midnight Phantom Cat. He transformed the weapon in his hands into a sharp battle lance and charged forward, striking it head-on. His hand movements were like a professional pianist, smooth, elegant, and without a single wasted motion. Boss Chen, observing from behind, initially criticized his typing speed as poor, but upon looking closer, she saw the boss defeated notification pop up on the screen. Moreover, this was the 10th server's very first Midnight Phantom Cat kill, prompting Boss Chen to genuinely praise Ye Xiu's skills. The dropped items were quite rare, so she continuously shook him, amazed by her new employee's incredible luck. However, a bitter Sleeping Moon continuously spammed the chat, calling Ye Xiu a despicable person for stealing the boss all by himself, claiming it was unacceptable. Boss Chen asked what had really happened. Ye Xiu recounted the events, which made her angry enough to want to confront the guy herself playing dirty and then shifting the blame. Did he have no shame? She asked if Ye Xiu was angry at Sleeping Moon. He replied that he was very angry. He just didn't show it on his face. With that, Boss Chen said goodnight, going to sleep to see if Ye Xiu could actually survive the night shift. She didn't forget to thank him for the jacket he had placed over her earlier. He bid her goodnight and continued grinding levels in the game. It seemed Sleeping Moon had a lot of influence, as everyone in the beginner area started calling Ye Xiu a cunning thief who was best avoided. Hearing this, Ye Xiu sighed, figuring he would just have to level up alone. Suddenly, Sleeping Moon, who was standing nearby, managed to gather a few more naive players. Seeing Ye Xiu, he shouted out, warning everyone to beware of the despicable person and not fall into his traps. The crowd chimed in, telling Ye Xiu to get lost and asking how he still had the nerve to show his face. Sleeping Moon smugly asked if Ye Xiu knew how powerful his influence was now. However, noticing that their party was short one person, Ye Xiu simply requested to join their team. Sleeping Moon badmouthed him endlessly, but the moment Ye Xiu asked to be added, he immediately clicked accept. Later, the group entered the forest to hunt another Midnight Phantom Cat. Though they were technically in a group, Ye Xiu alone was more than enough to take down the boss. The others could only stare in shock at how incredibly overpowered he was. The next dungeon the group stepped into was the Spider Cave. True to its name, the place was crawling with spiders and their eggs. The monsters here were mostly poisonous, so the group had to move slowly and carefully. The spiders launched an attack, sending dozens of them rushing toward their prey. But Ye Xiu anticipated this and used his lance to sweep them away, eliminating them instantly. The underlings hadn't expected him to be so aggressive, daring to draw all the aggro to himself. They could only wonder what kind of top-tier expert this guy was. While they were still processing this, Ye Xiu single-handedly cleared out all the small mobs along the way. He told the stunned group to stop standing around, as the boss was approaching. From deep within the cave, a giant spider emerged to see who dared disturb its slumber. Ye Xiu immediately closed the distance, unleashing a flurry of thrusts at the opponent. His movements were so fast that it completely dazzled the rest of the group. Despite being 25 years old, Ye Xiu's hand speed was still something many gamers could only dream of. It was so fast that he turned highly difficult combo attacks into basic, simple strikes, leaving the spider completely helpless against his lance. Sleeping Moon wanted to play dirty and sneak attack him, but seeing this, he realized he'd probably get killed the moment he tried. Ye Xiu defeated the giant spider, simultaneously becoming the first person in the 10th server to achieve this feat. Another team accomplished the same, but only managed second place. They were bitter, as they were only 10 seconds away from claiming the first kill title. Because Ye Xiu's name appeared on the server announcements twice, other guilds became highly suspicious of his background. The captain of the second-place team, Blue River, wondered about Ye Xiu's origins. Nobody knew who he was or where he came from. They could only conclude he was some hidden expert. Intrigued, Blue River told his guildmates to investigate the matter. After single-handedly slaying the giant spider, the three youths immediately changed their tune, respectfully calling Ye Xiu an expert. They got to share the title of first kill for the Spider Cave boss and held him in high regard. Sleeping Moon refused to yield, repeatedly declaring that he would definitely catch up to Ye Xiu. Ye Xiu simply encouraged him to do his best, which only infuriated Sleeping Moon even further. At that moment, the system announced that their group had stumbled into the lair of the Spider Emperor. Since this was a hidden boss, Ye Xiu told the group that he had a few requests. Naturally, they agreed, telling the expert to take whatever he wanted, as they weren't greedy. One of the youths even suggested that Sleeping Moon should hand over the party leader position to Ye Xiu. Frustrated and lacking the desire to play, Sleeping Moon handed it over, telling them to do whatever they wanted, since the boss belonged to them anyway. Seeing this, Ye Xiu confidently instructed everyone to just follow his commands. With that, he readied his lance and charged head-on at the boss. The Spider Emperor lunged forward from the ground, intending to teach Ye Xiu a lesson, but before it could do anything, he smoothly sliced through it. Ye Xiu ordered his teammates to stand in specific positions to prepare for battle. As for Sleeping Moon, since he was too incompetent, Ye Xiu told him to just stand still. After saying that, Ye Xiu slid under the boss's body, twisted upward, and thrust his lance into the Spider Emperor, striking it down. The smaller spiders summoned to assist the boss were all completely wiped out by Ye Xiu. He commanded his teammates to quickly move to 4 surrounding points to trap the boss. Because Sleeping Moon was too slow, Ye Xiu had to personally use a shadow clone to cover his position. Sleeping Moon was furious, but Ye Xiu ignored him, continuously thrusting his lance to chip away at the boss's health. The Spider Emperor was now entirely locked down and controlled by Ye Xiu alone. The team had never seen such a strategy before, and could only wonder if this guy was even human. Meanwhile, Ye Xiu stayed focused, reminding everyone not to let their guard down. He explicitly called out Sleeping Moon for slacking off, which infuriated the swordsman to no end. Shortly after, while Blue River and his teammates were still doubting Ye Xiu's true strength, a server announcement popped up declaring that the Spider Emperor had been defeated. The first team to achieve this was none other than Ye Xiu's 5-player party. Shocked by this news, the other players wondered about the background of this incredibly formidable group. Intrigued by Ye Xiu, a player sent him a friend request. Ye Xiu was left speechless because, after his recent achievements, his inbox was jammed with requests from people who previously thought he was a scammer, but now wanted to party up with him. Among them was a player with the ID Bluebridge Spring Snow. This person was known as one of the top 5 experts of the Bluebrook Guild, a highly reputable club in the Glory professional scene. Everyone knew of this player, even Sleeping Moon had heard the name. It turned out that Bluebridge Spring Snow was the same person who had just sent Ye Xiu a friend request. He waited a long time before Ye Xiu finally replied. Blue River messaged that his group was planning to run the Frost Forest dungeon, but were unfortunately short one person. Ye Xiu knew this was a lie, as a major guild like Bluebrook would never lack players. Admitting the truth, Bluebridge Spring Snow confessed that he wanted to secure the first kill, so he believed his team desperately needed a top-tier expert like Ye Xiu. Ye Xiu agreed on one condition: the rare materials dropped by the boss would belong to him. When Bluebridge Spring Snow asked what he wanted, Ye Xiu listed 72 strong spider silks, a vampire earring, and 8 white wolf teeth. Hearing this, Bluebridge nearly spat out his water, asking why he needed so much. But Ye Xiu wasn't finished, adding that there were a few more items he was still listing out, leaving Bluebridge feeling helpless and shocked by the exorbitant price. The next morning, Ye Xiu grabbed his jacket and prepared to leave when he ran into Boss Chen. Seeing his cheerful expression, she asked if he had managed to snatch up a few more first kills. He casually replied that it wasn't much, just 3 of them. Feeling sleepy, Ye Xiu asked Boss Chen if there was a room available for him. She led him to the 2nd floor to show him his resting quarters. The room looked very nice and incredibly comfortable, making Ye Xiu feel a bit embarrassed, as it seemed too luxurious for a new employee. But Boss Chen told him he had a wild imagination. The storage room next door was actually for him. She explained that the dormitories were full, so he would have to make do. He replied that as long as there was a bed, it was more than enough, and promptly fell fast asleep. Seeing this, Boss Chen quietly closed the door to let Ye Xiu rest in peace. That evening, the Excellent Era manager held a press conference to officially announce the retirement of the battle god, Ye Xiu. He offered Ye Xiu highly flattering words, but it was all just a facade to deceive the public. However, this announcement made Ye Xiu reminisce about his time playing under Excellent Era's banner. Back then, no opponent could challenge him, and no one was capable of being his equal rival. He stood alone at the top, unmatched by anyone. The fans of Glory felt a deep sense of regret upon hearing the news. Since Ye Xiu was 25 years old, they assumed they would never see the legendary expert touch a keyboard again. Feeling a bit troubled, Ye Xiu stepped outside to clear his head. Just then, he saw Boss Chen sitting with her face in her hands, sobbing quietly. She told Ye Xiu to stay away because he wouldn't understand. But he sat down and said he understood, which was why he had come outside to hide. Boss Chen asked if he had a tissue. Ye Xiu offered her what he had, joking that he only had scrap paper and asking if she wanted it. He quickly added he was just kidding and offered to go inside and get some proper tissues. Softening up, Boss Chen told him not to hold back and to cry if he needed to, since Ye Xiu was their idol after all. After speaking, she stood up, reminding him that it was getting cold and to head inside when he was done. The employees tried to comfort Boss Chen, but she refused to listen, claiming they didn't understand. Meanwhile, Ye Xiu bought a drink and quietly returned to his computer to continue gaming. Right then, Boss Chen approached him with a lifeless expression, nearly scaring the soul out of him. Ye Xiu asked why she was still crying, noting that the person she was crying for wouldn't even know or feel sad for her. She retorted that since he wasn't Ye Xiu, he wouldn't know that. Seeing that Boss Chen seemed to have some free time, Ye Xiu thought about asking for her help, but she just threw a tissue at his face and angrily asked if he realized how heartbroken she was. She called him a heartless brat for having the mood to play games right after their idol retired. But he replied that while the battle god Ye Xiu was resting, Ye Xiu was still here. Hearing this, Boss Chen was left speechless, assuming he was just role-playing again. She sat down and asked what he needed help with. Ye Xiu wanted her to show him how to destroy the skeleton warrior's saber. From what she remembered, it required a 2-4 hit combo, and she asked if he could even pull that off. However, no sooner had she spoken than Ye Xiu perfectly executed the 2-4 hit combo sequence. Normally, Boss Chen would be shocked and ask how he did it, but this time she simply walked away in depression. Seeing this, Ye Xiu said, "You still have me by your side." With that, he logged back into glory and teleported to the Frost Forest. Blue River's group was already there. They were also fans of the battle god Ye Xiu and felt a sense of loss after his retirement announcement. Ye Xiu arrived right on time for his appointment with Blue River. First, they introduced their names and classes. The one holding a staff was an elementalist named Thundering Light. Another was a cleric holding a spellbook named Lunar Grace. Finally, there was a paladin named Bound Boat. Blue River assured him that these players were the elites of the Blue Brook Guild, so he could rest easy. But Ye Xiu bluntly stated that if they wanted to break the dungeon record, they needed to change their team composition. He said the cleric class was unnecessary. Hearing this, Bound Boat indignantly argued that without a cleric, who would heal the person pulling the aggro for the team? But Ye Xiu replied that they wouldn't even need that role anyway. Confused, Blue River asked if he planned to run an all-DPS team. Ye Xiu told Blue River to relax and just leave the commanding to him. Blue River was rendered speechless, while Bound Boat wanted to beat Ye Xiu up for his arrogant remarks. But Ye Xiu reminded everyone they were short on time and urged them to move. Blue River hurriedly called out to him, asking him to at least explain the strategy first, but Ye Xiu was already walking away. Blue River had no choice but to indulge Ye Xiu's request and called in 2 new damage-dealing teammates to join them. Upon entering the dungeon, Ye Xiu didn't say a word and immediately charged forward, pulling all the monsters toward himself, prompting Blue River to ask what the strategy was and where the instructions were. But Ye Xiu had already split a nearby tree in half with his lance. It crashed down, attracting all the surrounding monsters. He told everyone to prepare for a one-wave rush, explaining he would gather all the monsters into a group. After that, Blue River and his teammates just needed to unleash their ultimate area of effect skills. Hundreds of goblin arrows rained down on Ye Xiu, but he gracefully dodged them, causing the monsters in the back to accidentally shoot their own allies. The other 4 players wondered if this guy was playing a joke on them. But Ye Xiu wasn't joking. He successfully corralled the entire mob. As they launched their attack, he skillfully executed a Z-shake movement to quickly escape. Watching this, Blue River was astounded, because even the guild leader of Blue Brook couldn't remain this calm under pressure. Ye Xiu then single-handedly held off the ferocious mob, leaving the other players rooted to the spot, wondering what kind of bizarre fighting style this was. Blue River recognized this as the unspecialized playstyle, but Thundering Light noted that it had been obsolete for years and only noobs played it now. However, Ye Xiu got bored of melee combat and transformed his weapon into a Gatling gun. He unloaded a barrage of bullets into the enemy ranks, leaving them no chance to react. Blue River could only scratch his head, waiting for his turn to fight. Although half the monsters were cleared, a massive horde still remained. With no other choice, Ye Xiu jumped into the air and lured them toward Blue River's location. He shouted at them to stop standing around and do their jobs. Hearing this, Thundering Light cast Firestorm, incinerating a huge number of monsters. Simultaneously, the Ice Mage cast Blizzard to freeze them in place. The female witch dropped a Shururu decoy to gather them. Blue River then followed up with Falling Light Blade, a highly damaging shockwave attack. After eating this relentless combo, the mob of monsters was wiped out in a single wave. Meanwhile, Lunar Grace and Bound Boat were still outside, waiting for them to exit. The paladin assumed the whole group had probably wiped. But before he could finish his thought, a message from Blue River arrived, saying it was incredibly fun inside and that Ye Xiu was an unbelievably strong expert. At the same time, the system announcement popped up, congratulating their team for successfully conquering the Frost Forest. Moreover, their clear time was just over 20 minutes, leaving the two players outside dumbfounded by the incredible speed. After witnessing Ye Xiu's true level, Blue River was thoroughly convinced of his skill, but just as he was about to invite Ye Xiu to run the dungeon again, Ye Xiu left the party on his own. Blue River cursed his luck, realizing that while the victory was sweet, he had still been left hanging. With that, another gaming session for Ye Xiu came to an end. He headed upstairs to rest, but upon opening the door, he found Boss Chen sleeping in his room. Ye Xiu was speechless that she had forgotten something as simple as turning off the TV. He walked over, pulled a blanket over her, and went into the other room to sleep, as he had the night shift later. Knowing Ye Xiu was the one who covered her, Boss Chen bought him breakfast as a thank you. Although he didn't wake up until the afternoon, they considered themselves even just then. Someone called Boss Chen, asking her to come pick them up. Ye Xiu grabbed a piece of fried dough to eat, but it was incredibly tough, as if it had been sitting out for days. It turned out the caller was Boss Chen's close friend, Tang Ru. Boss Chen rushed over to hug her, as they hadn't seen each other in a long time. Their sisterly bond was strong, but instead of letting Tang Ru rest after a long flight, Boss Chen asked her to log into the game and win back her honor. She complained that she kept losing 1v1 matches to a certain expert, so Tang Ru was determined to get revenge for her. Tang Ru used to be a well-known expert herself, so several guys in the cafe gathered around to watch her hand speed. Seeing the crowd, Ye Xiu walked over to take a look. He noted that her typing speed was quite good, and her dodging mechanics were impressive. As a result, it took Tang Ru less than 3 minutes to secure a victory. Boss Chen was overjoyed that she had finally exacted her revenge, but Tang Ru asked if that was the expert she had been talking about. Boss Chen clarified that the actual expert was someone she had lost to dozens of times. Despite having top-tier gaming skills, Tang Ru rarely logged into Glory anymore, explaining that she had grown bored of it because it was too easy. Boss Chen wanted to reignite her friend's passion and thought about finding a tough opponent for her to duel. Suddenly, she thought of Ye Xiu, the man who only needed 40 seconds to defeat the expert Tang Ru had just fought. Hearing this, Tang Ru immediately asked who he was. Boss Chen pointed at Ye Xiu and declared it was him. The cafe patrons, hearing that Tang Ru was about to duel, eagerly rushed over to watch. Boss Chen persuaded Ye Xiu to play a match against Tang Ru. Confidently, he asked if he needed to go easy on her. Boss Chen told him to just try, and he would see Tang Ru's true skill. Hearing this, Ye Xiu sat down at a computer, but before starting, he wanted to make a bet. Running low on smokes, Ye Xiu stated that if he won, Tang Ru had to buy him a pack of cigarettes. She agreed and placed a bill on the desk. Seeing the opportunity, Ye Xiu flashed a smug smile. The arena chosen for their 1v1 match was the fixed field, a spacious map where they could freely unleash their skills. Ye Xiu rushed forward to seize the advantage. Seeing this, Tang Ru opened fire, but Ye Xiu spun around to dodge the incoming attacks. The spectating crowd gasped in amazement as Ye Xiu's character slipped behind her and launched a surprise attack before Tang Ru could react. She retreated, jumped into the air, and aimed her gun down at Ye Xiu, but his weapon instantly transformed into a battle lance to deflect her line of fire. Boss Chen asked how his weapon had just been an umbrella a second ago and was now a lance. Ye Xiu didn't want to explain much, so he shifted the weapon into a Gatling gun, closed the distance, and unleashed a hail of bullets, giving Tang Ru no chance to reload. The audience recognized him immediately. Wasn't this the newly famous expert from the 10th server? Meanwhile, Ye Xiu used a shadow clone to trick Tang Ru into missing her attack. Not only that, he even summoned a goblin to gang up on her. Although Tang Ru managed to dodge the goblin's initial strike, she turned around to find her opponent completely gone. She focused on predicting Ye Xiu's trajectory, but by the time she spotted him, he was already behind her. He knocked her weapon away and followed up with a finishing blow, defeating her instantly. Ye Xiu then criticized her playstyle, asserting that if she wanted to beat him, she would need another 100 years of practice. Hearing this, Boss Chen scolded him for being too harsh. Ye Xiu pocketed the money and prepared to leave, but Tang Ru refused to accept the outcome and demanded to play more rounds. He declined, stating that the match hadn't been a duel, it was just him bullying her. Tang Ru admitted she had lost but said she wouldn't be discouraged by it. Acknowledging that her skills might be lacking, she requested that he fight her seriously one more time. However, even after several more matches, the outcome remained exactly the same. Tang Ru was drenched in sweat, while Ye Xiu calmly enjoyed the feeling of absolute dominance. His pile of money grew larger, but the defeat notification continued to flash across Tang Ru's screen. Verging on tears, she wanted to try again, but Ye Xiu felt enough was enough. Boss Chen pinched him, telling him that since he won, he should at least offer some words of encouragement. Ye Xiu then conceded that in Glory, hardly anyone had faster hand speed than Tang Ru, but high hand speed didn't necessarily equal true skill. Hearing this, the crowd collectively questioned whether that even counted as encouragement. Finding the onlookers annoying, Boss Chen shooed them away, telling them the show was over. She turned back to comfort her friend, assuring her that she would eventually dominate the game. However, Ye Xiu firmly stated that winning in Glory wasn't just about hand speed. It wasn't as simple as she thought. With that, he took the money and walked away, calling it her tuition fee. He added that if Tang Ru wanted to become a Glory expert, she could come find him anytime. Hearing this, she asked Boss Chen to create a game account for her, determined to eventually defeat Ye Xiu. Later that day, Boss Chen was delighted because Ye Xiu was treating her to a meal. He told her to eat as much as she wanted and not to hold back. But she suddenly remembered he was paying with the money he had won from Tang Ru, which instantly made the food taste less appetizing. Boss Chen turned and asked if her friend wanted a bite, but Tang Ru was busy creating her account and declined. Tang Ru chose the nickname Soft Mist, which puzzled Boss Chen because it didn't sound intimidating at all. However, to Tang Ru, a name was just for show. True strength was what actually mattered. Agreeing completely, Boss Chen asked what class Tang Ru planned to play. She replied that she would choose the unspecialized path, but Boss Chen warned her that it was incredibly difficult. Seeing Ye Xiu play an unspecialized, Tang Ru wanted to follow suit. However, Boss Chen pointed out Ye Xiu's weapon, the Myriad Manifestations umbrella, noting that it was perfectly tailored for his unspecialized class. The cafe patrons had once again gathered around Ye Xiu's computer, having had their eyes open to what a true Glory expert looked like. It turned out that the weapon was an umbrella custom-made by Ye Xiu himself, using various materials looted in the game. To him, a self-made weapon wasn't necessarily the strongest, but the most effective weapon was undoubtedly one crafted by his own hands. Hearing this, Tang Ru felt discouraged, realizing she probably had no way of playing an unspecialized character. Suddenly, she thought of the player Boss Chen idolized the most in Glory. Tang Ru wanted to emulate his playstyle, so she asked Boss Chen if she knew the specifics. When it came to the battle god Ye Xiu, Boss Chen claimed no one knew more than her. She immediately opened her computer and pulled out a massive file of guides on his battle mage class. Tang Ru admitted it was an overwhelming amount of information and feared she wouldn't be able to read it all. Just then, Ye Xiu walked over and asked if she wanted him to teach her a bit, casually mentioning that he was quite proficient with the battle mage class as well. Boss Chen told him not to lead the girl astray, insisting she would teach Tang Ru herself. Ye Xiu sighed, wondering who exactly was leading Tang Ru astray. With the real person standing right there, why did she need to read a guide? Boss Chen grew irritated, thinking he was spouting nonsense again, and defended the guide by saying it was written by the battle god Ye Xiu himself, so it couldn't be wrong. Ye Xiu admitted he was indeed the one who wrote it, but pointed out that it was from years ago. The meta had changed. Did Boss Chen really want her friend to play the game using outdated, ancient methods? He told Boss Chen and Tang Ru to go eat while he took care of revising the guide. Consequently, Ye Xiu typed away from the afternoon until late at night before finishing the revisions. Seeing this, Boss Chen was about to tell Tang Ru to log off and study, but Ye Xiu quickly stopped her. He believed that Tang Ru would understand the guide much better after building a practical foundation first. If she only stared at theories, she would never be able to truly break through, no matter how hard she tried. After saying this, Ye Xiu asked Boss Chen for permission to step out and run a quick errand. As soon as he was out, he heard chatter about a wild boss named the Blood Gunner spawning in the 10th server. At that very moment, an incredibly intense boss battle was unfolding in the boneyard. The Blood Gunner, wielding twin pistols, fired wildly in all directions, refusing to let any player get close. Blue River's group was also present, biding their time and waiting for the right moment to strike. However, numerous guilds had dispatched their forces to the area, causing Blue River quite a headache. He calmly told his men to push forward, while he provided support from the rear. Meanwhile, Cold Knight drew his sword and mocked them, saying that if they brought an army, they should just fight the boss themselves. But the blonde-haired Plantigo Seed wanted a peaceful resolution and proposed that Blue River's group form an alliance with his team to defeat the boss. The onlookers in the back could only watch helplessly, noting that whenever these three guild leaders crossed paths, they always ended up arguing loudly. On the other side of the battlefield, a brawler had rushed in, using his weapon to wound the blood gunner. Observing from below, Blue River had to admit that the strike was timed perfectly. The brawler then delivered a devastating knee strike to the boss. Everyone expected his next attack to be incredibly spectacular, but to their surprise, the brawler simply pulled out a brick and smashed it ruthlessly into the blood gunner's face. Watching this, the crowd assumed there was something fundamentally wrong with this guy's brain. Consequently, the blood gunner aggressively chased the brawler with its guns, giving him no chance to escape. Feeling that running alone wasn't fun enough, the brawler abruptly changed direction and sprinted straight toward the three guild leaders, causing them to curse out loud. With no other options, the three leaders ducked behind a corner, abandoning the brawler to be turned into mincemeat. Just as he was about to be wiped out, Ye Xiu arrived in the nick of time and saved his life. Wielding his battle lance, Ye Xiu clashed with the blood gunner, completely overwhelming it in every aspect. Taking a closer look, Blue River realized it was the exact same person who had helped him conquer the Frost Forest. This time, Ye Xiu was in a party where the brawler happened to be the team captain. Ye Xiu executed a series of elusive movements to close in on the blood gunner, seamlessly delivering a full-powered strike. He then used a shadow clone to flank it from behind, trapping the boss in a pincer attack. Those witnessing Ye Xiu's true strength for the first time were left wondering how anyone could be this insanely powerful. After he knocked the blood gunner down, his teammates quickly rushed in to support him. The guild leaders had to admit that his individual strength was easily equal to 10 average players combined. Ye Xiu then began commanding a coordinated four-directional assault. The brawler launched a strangle attack, but Ye Xiu corrected him, saying he needed to attack from the front next time so the boss could actually feel it. Enlightened, the brawler excitedly replied that he understood. Ye Xiu then told the brawler to use his signature brick attack. Hearing this, the brawler happily declared that throwing bricks was his favorite thing to do. However, his aim was so wildly off that the brick ended up hitting a teammate, earning him an earful of curses. Ye Xiu then ordered the mage to use a fire element shockwave. A massive magic circle materialized, incinerating the blood gunner from the outside. The brawler quickly closed in, used his toxic claws, and then slipped behind the boss to smash a brick directly into the back of its neck. Ye Xiu and the brawler teamed up to deliver a series of critical strikes aimed squarely at the boss, leaving the onlookers terrified by their incredibly seamless coordination. The commander of this team was terrifying. This was definitely someone they couldn't afford to underestimate. Ye Xiu switched to the Gatling gun form, unleashing focused fire to continuously pressure the blood gunner. Seeing the lively action, Boundboat eagerly wanted to jump into the fray, but Blue River quickly stopped him, warning that those two were incredibly opportunistic, and they couldn't rush in blindly. At that moment, Cold Knight approached, wanting to form an alliance with Blue River to hunt the boss. However, Plantigo Seed was a step ahead. He stood on a high vantage point and shouted, offering Ye Xiu a partnership where all the dropped loot would belong entirely to Ye Xiu. Seeing this, Blue River threw away his pride and continuously requested an alliance with Ye Xiu. Cold Knight wasn't about to be left out of the game either, repeatedly raising his offers to draw Ye Xiu to his team. Hearing the offers, Ye Xiu's party members urged him to quickly add them to the team. But Ye Xiu bluntly refused, asking if he looked like he needed reinforcements. He joked that if those three guild leaders teamed up with the boss, it might actually make it a fair fight. Seeing that the bribery tactics were ineffective, the three guilds ordered their members to charge in. However, Blue River instructed his guild not to play dirty with Ye Xiu. If the other two guilds tried to attack him, Blue Brook would stand by Ye Xiu's side. As for the brawler, although he seemed a bit scatterbrained, his combat strength absolutely could not be underestimated. When Ye Xiu saw the mob charging in, he told the brawler to hurry up and escape. Although the brawler didn't quite understand why, he quickly retreated as instructed. Ye Xiu remained behind, endlessly dueling the blood gunner. Completely suppressed by him, the boss unleashed its ultimate secret skill in a desperate bid to destroy everything. A surge of blood energy erupted from its body, causing the tombstones in the area to rise. Plantigo Seed was thoroughly confused, wondering how the boss had reached the enraged state when its health hadn't hit the required threshold. Blue River suddenly realized that Ye Xiu had executed a 2-0-0 hit combo earlier, meeting the hidden condition to trigger the boss's enrage mechanic. The three guild leaders were now surrounded by a horde of undead, summoned by the blood gunner. Instead of trembling, Cold Knight actually felt a rush of excitement. The undead kept multiplying until their numbers became overwhelming, making Plantigo Seed want to flee immediately. But the creatures rushed forward like starving beasts, intent on tearing their prey apart. Seeing no way out, Blue River stood his ground, ready for a decisive battle. As the horde lunged, he and his teammates charged in to fight the undead to the bitter end. Blue River easily sliced them in half, but nearly got hit due to a moment of carelessness. Fortunately, a teammate decapitated the monster, supporting their captain. Looking around, Blue River asked where the blood gunner had gone. It turned out Ye Xiu had led the boss to another area to have a little heart-to-heart chat. Accompanying him was the brawler, who was overly excited because it had been a long time since he last participated in such a chaotic gang brawl. He mentioned he had done this all the time since childhood and absolutely loved chaotic group fights. Meanwhile, the blood gunner, still dual-wielding its pistols, relentlessly chased the two of them. Ye Xiu lured it to a slope at the foot of the mountain and told the brawler to get ready to work. Suddenly, three figures appeared in the distance. The brawler was about to attack, but Ye Xiu stopped him, explaining he wanted to invite them into the party. It turned out to be Sleeping Moon and his friends, who had arrived to fight alongside him. Ye Xiu told the three to hurry over so he could pull the aggro for them. Two of the party members rushed forward, continuously clashing with the blood gunner. Meanwhile, Ye Xiu and Sleeping Moon split in two directions to attack. Seizing the perfect opportunity, Ye Xiu struck the enemy's blind spot with a lightning-fast lance thrust. The sheer impact of the blow made Blue River shudder, even though he was standing quite far from the battlefield. Still unwilling to give up on the boss, Blue River ordered his troops to head down and snatch the kill. The party warned Ye Xiu that an army was heading their way, but he calmly replied that they just needed to speed things up. Sleeping Moon asked what he was talking about. Was this not fast enough? But Ye Xiu had already increased his attack speed, unleashing a flurry of lightning-fast strikes in just a few seconds. Seeing this, the group complained that no one could keep up with such speed, jokingly asking him to lower his skill level to fit in with the rest of them. But the battle lance in Ye Xiu's hands moved so fast it turned into a silver streak, battering the blood gunner until it was dizzy. He warned everyone to quickly get out of the boss's enrage range. Simultaneously, he closed in on the blood gunner, using its body to plow through the rocky ground before casually tossing it aside and pinning it straight against the wall. The blood gunner's health had reached the critical threshold, causing it to summon its undead blood minions to counterattack. The brawler rushed over and smashed a brick into the head of one of the minions. But then Ye Xiu realized the blood gunner couldn't take any more damage and dissipated into thin air. A server-wide notification popped up in the 10th server announcing that the blood gunner had been defeated for the first time, and Ye Xiu and his teammates' names were broadcasted once again. Meanwhile, Tang Ru was training diligently, which made Boss Chen beam with joy. Suddenly, everyone gathered around to discuss Ye Xiu's latest in-game achievement. This accomplishment was truly impressive, making Boss Chen turn to look at him with a puzzled expression. At that moment, Ye Xiu was receiving thanks from his party members. Noticing that Sleeping Moon was unusually quiet, he asked what was wrong. A party member explained that Sleeping Moon was feeling deeply hurt. It was because Ye Xiu had abruptly left his group the day before. To make matters worse, he went to play with another guild, which broke Sleeping Moon's heart. Hearing this, Ye Xiu was left speechless by the guy's childishness. Right then, Blue River sent him a private message request. Ye Xiu stared at it for a moment, wondering if he should reply. Meanwhile, Blue River was pacing anxiously, waiting for Ye Xiu to respond. A moment later, Ye Xiu replied, telling him to speak his mind. It turned out Blue River wanted to complain, saying he never expected Ye Xiu to monopolize the blood gunner all to himself. But Ye Xiu pointed out that wild bosses are public property, so whoever secures the kill gets the loot. The two turned into keyboard warriors, arguing relentlessly. However, since Blue River was at a disadvantage, he couldn't really blame Ye Xiu anymore. Swallowing his pride, Blue River asked, "Brother, how about we run a dungeon together again?" But Ye Xiu replied that he didn't have the time, leaving Blue River dejected and wondering if his guild superiors would cut his salary tonight. After a night filled with achievements, Ye Xiu was about to log off and rest, but suddenly, a server announcement popped up declaring that a player had broken the Frost Forest dungeon record. The guild's name was Excellent Dynasty, and their clear time was 13 minutes, 24 seconds, and 21 milliseconds. Meanwhile, Captain Han, as he did every day, waited until late at night to go for a run to maintain his fitness. Just then, he heard two guys outside, chattering loudly about nonsense, so Captain Han went out to tell them to keep their voices down. "If you two aren't going to sleep, at least let others sleep. It's past 11 p.m., he warned. Hearing this, they fled in terror, afraid they might lose their teeth if they stayed. At that moment, Zhang Xinjie walked over and handed Captain Han information about the Excellent Dynasty Guild. Knowing that this was the in-game guild for the Excellent Era Esports team, they suspected that the battle god Ye Xiu was the one who single-handedly helped Excellent Dynasty achieve this incredibly fast record. Captain Han wondered if Ye Xiu still wanted more even after retiring. Meanwhile, Ye Xiu sneezed, figuring someone must be talking about him. Cold Knight also wanted to set a record, so he contacted Ye Xiu to invite him for a dungeon run. Cold Knight similarly suspected that the battle god Ye Xiu was the one guiding Excellent Dynasty, which explained their achievement. But, since the real Ye Xiu was sitting right there, Ye Xiu messaged back, firmly stating that the battle god had no connection to Excellent Dynasty. However, Ye Xiu was absolutely certain that Excellent Dynasty's record had professional players involved. It would take at least 3 pros to achieve that time. Cold Knight panicked a bit and asked what they should do now. Seeing this, Ye Xiu asked him to prepare the necessary equipment for him, stating that he would personally hand-pick the team members. On his side, he already had the brawler, Tang Ru, and a launcher. Seeing a launcher class on the list, Boss Chen laughed heartily. Assuming Ye Xiu wanted her help, she asked, "What if I want to run the Frost Forest? Why didn't you say so earlier, instead of keeping quiet?" But Ye Xiu sighed, not wanting to explain, which annoyed Boss Chen, as she demanded to know what he meant by that. The following evening marked Excellent Era's opening match under the leadership of Sun Xiang. Curious, Ye Xiu went downstairs to watch. Looking at the match, Sun Xiang put on a fairly good performance, stalling well for his team. Especially before Ye Xiu arrived to watch, Sun Xiang had pulled off a beautiful 1v3 play. Since Sun Xiang was currently using Ye Xiu's account, he utilized the character's most powerful skills to their fullest extent. Boss Chen had even unknowingly become a fan of Sun Xiang. She turned to Ye Xiu and asked why he didn't look excited, considering how thrilling the match was. But he told her to stay calm, as the match wasn't over yet. Just by analyzing the flow of the game, Ye Xiu already knew that Excellent Era would be the losing team. Boss Chen laughed in his face, asking how they could possibly lose when Sun Xiang was playing so well. She assumed Ye Xiu wasn't fully awake, but he firmly maintained that Excellent Era would lose this match. The opposing team had an expert named Yang Kong, whose hand speed and attack execution were no less impressive than Sun Xiang's. But in terms of experience, Yang Kong was a step above him. He and his teammates maneuvered cleverly to bait Sun Xiang into attacking faster. As his speed increased, his teammates couldn't keep up or coordinate properly. Boss Chen argued that it was impossible since Sun Xiang was so strong. Ye Xiu stated it was just his personal opinion and that he might be wrong. However, he emphasized that glory had never been a one-man game. Sure enough, Sun Xiang was soon tightly marked by the expert Xu Bin and couldn't break free. Xu Bin stuck close to him, making Sun Xiang increasingly anxious as he tried to escape his passive situation. Seeing this, Su Mucheng provided artillery support, creating a brief window for her teammate. She was considered the star player of Excellent Era, so whenever she appeared, Boss Chen watched attentively and cheered enthusiastically. But now, Su Mucheng was targeted by the opponent. The other team had an assassin with highly agile movement skills, serving as a hard counter to a long-range launcher like her. The assassin slipped behind her and launched an attack that knocked her weapon out of her hands, while Sun Xiang remained pinned down by Xu Bin. The match was tenser than a tightrope, but suddenly, the power in the cafe went out. Everyone complained, frustrated that it happened at such a crucial moment. Boss Chen intended to ask Ye Xiu to call an electrician, so she asked the staff where he was. A moment later, the power was restored. As soon as the lights came back on, Tang Ru immediately sat at her computer to continue practicing. Ye Xiu asked if she was still going to play since it was already late. She replied that it was easier to level up at night and wanted to make the most of it. Just then, 2 professional players walked into the cafe. Seeing them, Ye Xiu recognized them as acquaintances. The young man named Liu Hao approached and flirted with Tang Ru, asking if she was playing Glory. She gave a few perfunctory responses, which confused him, and he asked if she recognized him. She bluntly asked if they had ever met before, wondering why she should remember him. It turned out these were Ye Xiu's former teammates. Excellent Era had suffered a crushing defeat in their recent match, so Lu Hao and his companion had drunk too much. Seeing Ye Xiu sitting there, they started throwing sarcastic questions at him. Is being a manager hard work? Do you have enough money to get by, bro? Ye Xiu answered vaguely, making Tang Ru assume they were friends of his. But they sneered, saying they wouldn't dare claim to be friends with the great Ye Xiu, they were merely his subordinates. Seeing Ye Xiu's displeased expression, they grew even more arrogant and laughed mockingly. Tang Ru realized this guy had drank way too much and wanted to kick him out, but Lu Hao told her not to interfere, claiming this was a personal grudge between them. Hearing this, Ye Xiu stood up and said, "Stop spouting nonsense, or I'll have to teach you a lesson like I used to." Tang Ru chuckled, leaving Lu Hao thoroughly humiliated. Furious, he pointed at Ye Xiu and declared that they were no longer on the same level. Lu Hao boasted that he was the vice-captain of Excellent Era, while Ye Xiu was just a lowly employee. The other player realized Lu Hao had gone too far and broke into a cold sweat. Meanwhile, Ye Xiu wasn't angry at all. Instead, he was incredibly calm. He asked Lu Hao where he was when Sun Xiang was fighting 1v3. Did he pay attention to the overall strategy? How could a vice-captain let the team's formation fall apart like that? Hearing this, Lu Hao was left speechless. Ye Xiu then stated that Lu Hao couldn't become the captain because his skills were still far too lacking. If he wanted to take the captain's seat from Sun Xiang, he needed to try much harder. With that, Ye Xiu walked over, pointed at a sign prohibiting drunk patrons, and asked the two of them to leave. Furious, Lu Hao wanted to get physical with him, but Ye Xiu calmly sat back in his chair and reminded them that they were just background characters here, so they should stop making a scene. Thus, Lu Hao was humiliated in front of a girl, and to make matters worse, his subordinate witnessed him being reprimanded by a mere staff member. Tang Ru was worried that they might return to cause more trouble, but Ye Xiu was unconcerned, knowing full well that they wouldn't dare show their faces on his home turf again. Ye Xiu reminded Tang Ru to hurry up and level up so she could teleport to the Frost Forest. He mentioned that Cold Knight's team was waiting there, along with a player who had an incredibly ridiculous in-game name. Even Ye Xiu was left a bit speechless by how bizarre the name was. The brawler, Steamed Bun, also arrived, making Cold Knight realize this was just the noob who liked to throw bricks, not some hidden expert. Frustrated, he asked Ye Xiu what he was playing at. Knowing full well that Excellent Dynasty used 3 pro players to set the record, why would Ye Xiu bring a complete amateur along? Tang Ru chuckled, wondering if this was how high-level experts usually talk to each other. Ye Xiu introduced her, saying this girl was new to dungeons, so everyone should help her out. Hearing this, Cold Knight felt like he had been struck by lightning. They were here to break a record, yet this guy kept dragging along complete noobs. At this rate, they might just set the record for the longest dungeon clear in history. But Ye Xiu told Cold Knight to relax, as he hadn't just brought 2 noobs. It turned out a launcher account had been prepared specifically for Su Mucheng. Seeing the new character, Cold Knight sighed in despair, assuming it was yet another useless amateur. The guild leader told Cold Knight to stay put, while he personally went into the dungeon with them. Cold Knight despairingly told his guild leader that their run was totally hopeless. The guild leader smiled, blaming Cold Knight for hyping Ye Xiu up so much, only to end up in this situation. However, that was what the guild leader thought before entering the dungeon. Upon witnessing Tang Ru's true strength, he no longer dared to underestimate her. Her speed was incredibly fast. Accompanied by Steamed Bun's highly agile coordination in intercepting monsters, they created perfect openings for Ye Xiu to unleash Gatling gun fire upon the enemy. Steamed Bun wanted to chat with Tang Ru, asking her what her zodiac sign was, but Ye Xiu scolded him, asking if he really still had time to slack off and chat. He immediately asked Tang Ru to move up and pull more monsters. She left, prompting Steamed Bun to shift his conversational target to the guild leader. However, the guild leader also made an excuse, saying he had to go pull monsters and had no time. After the group was surrounded from all directions, the guild leader thought this was enough to handle, as any more would be unmanageable. But then Su Mucheng walked over, dragging a massive horde of aggroed monsters behind her, completely shocking him. Meanwhile, Ye Xiu remained perfectly composed, standing still and showering them with bullets, eliminating them one by one. Against these mindless monsters, Tang Ru's advantage in hand speed truly shined. She used countless rapid thrusts to strike down the enemies. However, turning around, she saw the horde was still too large to break through. Ye Xiu instructed Steamed Bun and Tang Ru to swap attack directions for greater flexibility. Noticing her low level, Steamed Bun was slightly worried that she wouldn't be able to hold her ground. Tangru didn't bother explaining. She simply proved her caliber through raw skill. A volley of arrows flew toward her, forcing her to retreat and dodge. However, halfway there, Steamed Bun accidentally pulled another mob of monsters, leaving Tangru no time to react before being ambushed. Surrounded by monsters, and with enemy archers launching a new wave of attacks, Tangru fought desperately with her battle lance. Due to the sheer numbers, her health dropped significantly. Seeing this, Ye Xiu swapped positions with her, telling her to relax and leave this area to him. With that, he emerged holding a monster and hurled it at its kin, crushing them together. The three of them coordinated to funnel the monsters into a corner. Seizing the opportunity, the guild leader cast a fire spell, bringing a meteor crashing down to the ground. If any monster was lucky enough to survive that blast, Tangru stood ready as the final line of defense. To set a dungeon record, every single second counts. A breakthrough is only possible when the whole team coordinates perfectly. Ye Xiu understood this well, which was why he chose players who synced with his intentions rather than just mechanically strong players who only knew how to charge in blindly. The guild leader was completely shocked because, despite their stats looking like total amateurs, their combat efficiency was unexpectedly high. At this pace, he believed their team could successfully shatter Excellent Dynasty's record. Meanwhile, though Sumo Cheng didn't show off much, every time she pulled the trigger, it left the guild leader staring in awe. To finish things off, Sumo Cheng unleashed an ultimate artillery strike that shook the very space around them. This was hardly surprising given that Sumo Cheng was the star player of Excellent Era, evaluated to have potential rivaling even the battle god Ye Xiu. Seeing her playstyle, the guild leader was stunned. He had assumed she was a noob, not someone with god-tier firepower. Because her playstyle was exactly like Sumo Cheng's, he began to heavily suspect the true identity of this launcher. If that was true, then could the person commanding them really be the battle god, Ye Xiu? Sumo Cheng asked Ye Xiu how her performance was. Ye Xiu simply reminded her to be careful and not to mess around when they made the actual record-breaking run. Hearing the phrase mess around, the guild leader breathed a sigh of relief, convincing himself that her earlier display was just pure luck. Feeling a bit stifled, she stood back and watched him plunge solo into the battlefield, sweeping through countless enemies. Ye Xiu had spoken purposefully to slow her down a beat. He messaged Sumo Cheng privately, telling her to hold back and go easy, otherwise she would completely expose her identity. A while later, Ye Xiu and the group exited the dungeon, preparing to log off and rest. But before exiting the game, Ye Xiu took a moment to teach Tangru a few tricks for fighting more efficiently, how to use the least amount of mana while still dealing enough significant damage to defeat opponents. For the next few days, Ye Xiu's group did nothing but eat, sleep, and grind in the game. Tangru listened to the battle god's guidance even while eating, while Ye Xiu, being a seasoned expert, mostly just slept and taught her without needing much practice himself. Steamed Bun continued to camp at the internet cafe day and night. That evening, Ye Xiu upgraded his weapon to a new tier. As a result, with just one serious run, they successfully set the Frost Forest record at 13 minutes, 5 seconds, and 47 milliseconds. Upon learning this, Liu Hao was furious. He hadn't expected Excellent Dynasty's record to be broken so quickly. He knew perfectly well that the person behind this newly famous character was none other than Ye Xiu. Liu Hao was bitter. Ye Xiu had already been kicked out of Excellent Era, so why couldn't he just lie low? Knowing that Ye Xiu was trying to make a fresh start, Liu Hao wanted to crush his dreams completely. Consequently, just a few hours later, Excellent Dynasty successfully conquered a new record in the Boneyard Dungeon with a total time of 16 minutes and 56 seconds. This news reached Ye Xiu, but since that dungeon was only for players under level 25, he had to reluctantly ignore it. Meanwhile, Liu Hao was ecstatic at the thought of crushing Ye Xiu once more. Furthermore, he created a new account to invite Ye Xiu to play together. His new nickname was Hateful Sword. Unsuspecting, Ye Xiu accepted the friend request. Liu Hao called Ye Xiu a great god and begged to tag along with him. Ye Xiu declined, stating his party was already full. Playing the underdog, Liu Hao pleaded to join them next time, so he could learn from Ye Xiu. Seeing this junior eager to learn, Ye Xiu forwarded Steamed Bun's ID to him and immediately logged off. Liu Hao was incredibly annoyed, but figured that to get close to Ye Xiu, he would have to buddy up with Steamed Bun first. However, Steamed Bun's rambling and exasperating way of talking made Liu Hao feel like exploding from sheer frustration. Later on, Steam Bun had a PvP duel with him. Shockingly, Lu Hao lost and was thoroughly taunted by Steamed Bun in a humiliating defeat. Lu Hao immediately messaged Ye Xiu, complaining that he had lost. It turned out that after winning, Steamed Bun had already messaged Ye Xiu, bragging that this guy was no match for him. Lu Hao grew even more furious, never expecting to face such humiliation. To soothe his bruised ego, Ye Xiu decided to let Hateful Sword into the party. The group then headed to the boneyard and successfully set a record of 23 minutes and 54 seconds. But Ye Xiu wanted to be even faster, so he continued researching a new strategy. Because it required high-level coordination, Ye Xiu sent the strategy to the group and told them to practice it a few times. Seeing Lu Hao's character, Suma Cheng felt suspicious and asked Ye Xiu where he found this guy. Ye Xiu replied that the guy had sought him out, so he just let him join. Lu Hao was extremely curious to learn Ye Xiu's new strategy. However, since he was currently treated like a complete noob and was constantly mocked by Steamed Bun over his miserable PvP defeat, Lu Hao had to swallow his pride, swearing to himself that he would make Ye Xiu suffer. After reviewing Ye Xiu's strategy, he managed to grasp a portion of it. He called his teammates into a room and announced that they were heading to the boneyard that night. But someone reminded him that he had a professional league match that very evening. Ultimately, he showed up for the match but achieved nothing, serving merely as background fodder for Huang Xiaotian's spectacular plays. With a sword in hand, Huang Xiaotian relentlessly pressured Lu Hao, offering his opponent zero chances to counterattack. The spectators mocked Lu Hao, asking if he had just woken up since he was playing so sluggishly. Meanwhile, Huang Xiaotian struck a pose, jabbing with his sword in one hand while scratching his back with the other just to infuriate his opponent. He continuously trash-talked while fighting, leaving the viewers exasperated. People couldn't help but wonder if this guy's mouth even had a cooldown timer. Following 2 consecutive team losses, an enraged Sun Xiang smashed the furniture and stormed out of the meeting room in frustration. Despite his abysmal professional performance, Lu Hao still logged into glory, intent on dealing Ye Xiu a heavy blow. Utilizing the stolen strategy, he successfully cleared the boneyard with a time of 17 minutes and 22 seconds. Naturally, Ye Xiu was fully aware of this, but wasn't surprised in the slightest. He told Tang Ru he had anticipated this outcome and told her to stick around for a good show. Sure enough, just a few minutes later, Lu Hao messaged Ye Xiu, asking, "Why was the other team so fast?" Ye Xiu replied that it was because he hadn't fought with his full strength yet. Lu Hao played innocent, claiming, "I tried my absolute best." His heart pounded frantically, terrified that he had been exposed, and he desperately tried to explain himself. But Ye Xiu retorted, asking if he really thought he could hide his true strength from his eyes. Ye Xiu addressed Lu Hao by his real name, asking if he had forgotten who taught him how to play the game in the first place. Hearing this, Lu Hao instantly left the party, unable to come up with any more excuses. Suddenly, Tang Ru noticed a young man sneaking around outside the door and asked who it was. The person had already run off, so Ye Xiu told her to ignore it and not worry. It turned out to be an acquaintance of his, so Ye Xiu covertly signaled him to come in. Ye Xiu commented on the guy's outfit, noting that it looked incredibly suspicious, like a thief's getup. Huang Xiaotian indignantly replied that he had a lot of fans, so he had to keep a low profile in public. Moreover, since this was an internet cafe, plenty of Glory players would recognize him. When Tang Ru spotted him earlier, he thought he was recognized, which was why he scurried away. Ye Xiu led him to a private, secluded computer station, assuring him it was safe there. Hearing this, Huang Xiaotian took off his scarf to breathe, but warned Ye Xiu that if news of him playing at an internet cafe leaked, he would make sure Ye Xiu wouldn't have a moment of peace either. Suddenly, Huang Xiaotian asked Ye Xiu why he had abruptly announced his retirement. Surely it wasn't because his skills were declining, but Ye Xiu told him to help break a dungeon record first. They could chat later. Huang Xiaotian complained that normally, money had to be on the table before he'd play a match, yet now he was expected to help Ye Xiu clear a dungeon for free? He strictly warned Ye Xiu not to tell anyone, or he would drag Ye Xiu down with him. With that, Huang Xiaotian grabbed the account card and logged into the game as a low-level blade master. He felt utterly humiliated that a top-tier pro player like himself had to use such a trashy account provided by Ye Xiu. Initially, Huang Xiaotian thought it would be easy, but upon seeing Excellent Dynasty's record, he was completely shell-shocked, wondering if they had unlocked some primordial power. Huang Xiaotian turned to mock Ye Xiu, amused that someone of his caliber cared so much about running a low-level dungeon multiple times, and even developing a new strategy for it. At midnight, the entire team logged into the game, but Huang Xiaotian immediately marched over to interrogate Ye Xiu, asking what kind of trash account he had prepared that only came with a pathetic, low-quality sword. To make matters worse, the blade was slightly bent and flimsy, pure garbage. The rest of the party asked who this yellow-haired, sword-wielding guy was. Before Ye Xiu could say a word, Huang Xiaotian shouted loudly, terrified that Ye Xiu would reveal his true identity. Assuming Huang Xiaotian was just trying to be mysterious, Steamed Bun walked over to tease him, thoroughly annoying the pro player. Steamed Bun even sang a song dedicated to Huang Xiaotian, which Sumo Cheng actually praised as quite good. Seeing that the excursion was getting a bit absurd, Ye Xiu told everyone to get moving. Huang Xiaotian was also eager to go, wanting to see this supposedly brilliant strategy that Ye Xiu had concocted out of sheer boredom. To start, Ye Xiu leaped into the air and unleashed a lightning-infused strike onto the ground. The summoned blood minions woke up and immediately charged forward, looking to make him their dinner. However, Ye Xiu used a shadow clone to deceive them, leading Huang Xiaotian to think he was playing a ninja. Meanwhile, Ye Xiu slipped behind the mob and executed a falling flower palm, a move that blasted them all away. Witnessing this, Huang Xiaotian asked what class this guy was even playing. He was supposed to be unspecialized, then he used ninja skills, and now he was busting out battle mage moves. But Ye Xiu didn't stop there. He transformed his weapon from an umbrella into a battle lance. Seeing this, Huang Xiaotian acted like an excited child, marveling at how incredibly top-tier and transformable it was. Su Mucheng shook her head in exasperation. This guy simply never knew when to shut his mouth. Chasing after him, Huang Xiaotian asked Ye Xiu what exactly he was holding. Ye Xiu revealed that it was a weapon he and a friend had crafted back when Huang Xiaotian was still running around stealing bosses from the rest of the world. Flustered, Huang Xiaotian told him to stop bringing up his dark history and to focus on the fight. Suddenly, they spotted a crevice in the cliff wall. Ye Xiu had anticipated this and used his lance to fiercely smash a monster straight into the crack. Huang Xiaotian didn't understand the purpose of this, but he followed suit, leaping up to slash down enemies and wedge them into the crevice. Tangru was astonished by how incredibly fast his speed was. Ye Xiu instructed Huang Xiaotian to stuff all of them in there. It saved a lot of time since their only goal was to defeat the boss, meaning the smaller mobs didn't actually need to be killed. Shortly after, the Boneyard boss appeared. Unfortunately for the boss, it was facing 3 top-tier glory experts simultaneously. On top of that, Steamed Bun and Tangru's skills had improved, and they took turns ruthlessly beating it down. Although Huang Xiaotian was wielding a trashy sword, his top-tier form hadn't faded in the slightest. Suma Cheng acknowledged that despite his incessant talking, he was undeniably an expert among experts. At that moment, Ye Xiu brought out the Gatling gun and rained bullets entirely on the boss. He even unleashed a devastating ultimate skill, blowing the boss far into the distance. It slammed into the wall and was instantly executed by Ye Xiu. Instead of unleashing combo attacks, Huang Xiaotian unleashed a combo of words, praising how Ye Xiu's skills hadn't deteriorated at all. He noted that Ye Xiu's plan sounded like a guaranteed success, and that Excellent Dynasty had only set their record by using this exact method. Ye Xiu then revealed that Lu Hao was the one who had infiltrated their group to steal the strategy, which was how Excellent Dynasty managed to set the record. Hearing this, Steamed Bun was appalled, completely shocked that the noob was actually a spy. He swore that once the dungeon was over, he would expose Lu Hao on the world chat. Huang Xiaotian realized this was why Lu Hao had played like an idiot in their pro match today. He was entirely focused on preparing for this dungeon run. However, he asked why Ye Xiu thought they could set a new record when the opposing side was Excellent Era's elite guild. Ye Xiu simply replied, "Don't I have the expert Troubling Rain right here beside me?" Later, the Blue Brook Guild sent an invitation for Huang Xiaotian to join. Seeing this, he assumed his identity had been exposed and angrily blamed Ye Xiu, but Ye Xiu told him to calm down and look closely. It turned out Ye Xiu was the one who had sent the guild invitation to him. Although Huang Xiaotian didn't know when Ye Xiu had joined Blue Brook, he breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly, remembering Ye Xiu's umbrella, he incessantly bombarded Ye Xiu with questions about it, forcing Ye Xiu to quickly put on his headphones. Ye Xiu figured he'd rather listen to Steam Bun sing. This was basically pure audio torture. Despite having 2 absolute clowns on the team, they successfully cleared the dungeon in just 16 minutes and 24 seconds. This immediately established a new record, leaving Liu Hao thoroughly shocked when he found out. Seeing a new member on the team, Liu Hao clicked to check the profile. At a glance, he recognized that this player was definitely Huang Xiaotian, using his character, Troubling Rain. Meanwhile, Huang Xiaotian was still incessantly asking Ye Xiu, "What exactly is that umbrella you're holding?" It was known that the unspecialized was once a widely popular class, but it was later shunned because the leveling process was too difficult. The meta had also changed, virtually eliminating this class from the game. Ye Xiu stayed silent, not wanting to engage, but Huang Xiaotian's mouth never seemed to take a break. Seeing this, the other three party members quickly slipped away, afraid they'd lose their minds if they listened any longer. Huang Xiaotian walked over to Ye Xiu in the cafe and demanded to know why he wasn't answering. "I'm speaking with so much passion, why won't you reply with even a single word?" Ye Xiu simply asked, "What were you talking about again? I forgot." Hearing this, an indignant Huang Xiaotian demanded a duel with Ye Xiu in the arena. But since he couldn't use his main account right now, he postponed it for next time. Suddenly, Huang Xiaotian asked Ye Xiu why he had retired so abruptly. Ye Xiu replied that he stepped down because the team's performance was poor. Huang Xiaotian refused to accept this, believing that it was all because Liu Hao played dirty to frame Ye Xiu. He claimed that Liu Hao looked like a two-faced schemer with malicious intentions. He then asked, "If that's the case, why didn't you just transfer teams? With your skills, what club wouldn't want a player like you?" Meanwhile, Suma Cheng was walking around the building, playfully teasing the runners-up. One of them stopped her and asked, "You guys played a trick in the Boneyard dungeon, didn't you?" But Suma Cheng acted innocent, saying, "Oops, I don't know anything. Why are you blaming me?" It turned out that Suma Cheng was not just Ye Xiu's teammate, but essentially like a younger sister to him. The reason he hadn't transferred teams was because he wanted to wait for her contract to expire so they could join the same banner together. Hearing this, Huang Xiaotian asked when her contract would end. Ye Xiu revealed that it would be another year and a half before she could leave Excellent Era. This shocked Huang Xiaotian. If he waited over a year, Ye Xiu's hands might not be as nimble as they were now, due to his age. But Ye Xiu asked if Huang Xiaotian remembered their match history before he started talking so confidently. Dodging the question, Huang Xiaotian commented on how nice the weather was today. Making excuses that it was getting late, he said his goodbyes and announced he was leaving. Before leaving, however, he reminded Ye Xiu that he absolutely had to return to the professional scene. Huang Xiaotian promised that if Ye Xiu faced any difficulties, he just needed to say the word, and he would help him out completely. Ye Xiu lowered his head, walked over, and raised his hand. Huang Xiaotian thought he wanted a handshake to show mutual agreement, but Ye Xiu simply said, 2 hours of internet access is 10 yuan. Please pay before you leave. Huang Xiaotian was caught off guard, unable to believe that after he had helped him clear a dungeon, Ye Xiu was still demanding internet fees. On the other side, Liu Hao was formulating a new plan to take the record back, completely unaware that he was being monitored by his own subordinates. News of Ye Xiu's record reached Blue River and Cold Night. Though the two guild leaders didn't like each other, they had to sit down and brainstorm. Blue River asked, "Where is Plantago Seed? Why isn't he here today?" It turned out Plantago Seed was secretly stalking Ye Xiu's group to see exactly what made them so strong. Steam Bun spotted him and immediately reported to Ye Xiu, but he said to just ignore it. However, before he even finished his sentence, Plantago Seed charged in, initiating a battle with lightning magic. Tang Ru was hit, so the group silently understood that Plantago Seed wanted a duel. He continued to attack Tang Ru, relentlessly striking her blind spots, completely suppressing her. Seeing this, Steamed Bun babbled nonsensically, leaving the group speechless as he rambled instead of saving his teammate. But Steamed Bun eventually decided to act, picking up a brick to challenge the attacker. However, Plantago Seed was too fast. Steamed Bun couldn't even track his movements. Plantago Seed seemed to vanish and suddenly reappear, leaving Steamed Bun no time to dodge. He took a hit from a broom, crashed to the ground, and lay there defeated. This shocked Sleeping Moon. How could players as fast as Steamed Bun and Tang Ru still get hit? Realizing this was a tough opponent, Ye Xiu decided to get a bit serious. But the real Plantago Seed was actually just standing on the sidelines watching. The person controlling the character in-game was an entirely different young man. Ye Xiu didn't care. He blocked Plantago Seed's path and executed a few probing moves. The two then engaged in an incredibly even 1v1 duel, neither willing to yield. Ye Xiu and the mysterious youth fought like destined rivals, constantly predicting each other's next attacks and perfectly blocking them. It had been a long time since Ye Xiu met an opponent of this caliber, so he unleashed high-quality combo attacks as a counter. Sleeping Moon could only gape in awe, wondering if these two had reached godly hand speeds. Ye Xiu decided to end it. He leaped into the air and unleashed a dragon breaks the ranks. However, it was just his shadow clone. The mysterious youth was tricked into raising his guard, giving Ye Xiu the perfect opening to finish the match with an unexpected horizontal sweep. After losing, the mysterious youth was completely convinced of his opponent's skill. This person was renowned as a top-tier expert in glory, and Plantago Seed was a huge fan of his, which was why he had yielded his seat for him to play. In return, the expert had given him an autograph, just as he had requested. Plantago Seed asked what he thought of Ye Xiu's team. He replied that Ye Xiu was indeed incredibly strong, or rather, his playstyle was completely identical to the battle god Ye Xiu's. As for Steamed Bun, he fought wildly without logic, and Tang Ru was likely just a beginner. But he didn't rush to conclusions. He still wanted to monitor Ye Xiu to see the true extent of his strength. Meanwhile, Ye Xiu had also begun to suspect the identity of the person controlling Plantago Seed. Sleeping Moon asked if he knew who it was. Ye Xiu said he was afraid it would shock him, but there was a high chance that person was Wang Jexi. Hearing this, the group was thoroughly astonished that the person they had just clashed with was a supreme expert. It was known that in Glory, there were top titles: Battle God, King of Fighting, Magician, Sword Saint, and the Great Gunner. Wang Jexi was the expert who held the title of Magician. Ye Xiu didn't find this surprising, as Wang Jexi's playstyle was notoriously bizarre and unpredictable, constantly changing in ways no one could read. Wang Jexi then called over a junior team member, saying he needed a favor, but Qiao Yifan, standing nearby, felt dejected, wishing he could be like him. Right now, Yifan was just an errand boy, fetching water for everyone. To make matters worse, he was constantly complained about by grumpy teammates. Just then, Wang Jexi turned back and handed Yifan a glory login card. It turned out Wang Jexi wanted them to head to the 10th server to hunt down Ye Xiu's in-game character. Immediately, Yifan and his teammate logged into the game and headed to an area called Desolate Land. They wondered who this guy was to make Wang Jexi so anxious to eliminate him. Yifan was the first to find Ye Xiu, so he sent the coordinates to the team and converged on the location. Xiao Yun, overestimating his own abilities, confidently charged forward to face Ye Xiu head-on. After the opening exchange, he was completely outmatched. Meanwhile, Yifan used his assassin skills to try and sneak attack Ye Xiu, but failed completely. As a result, Ye Xiu simply sidestepped slightly, causing Yifan to take a hit from Xiao Yun's lance. Meanwhile, Ye Xiu had taken the opportunity to climb to a higher vantage point unnoticed. From there, he immediately switched to Gatling gun mode, peppering the two of them with bullets until their characters were severely damaged. Seeing this, Boss Chen asked, "What's going on? Are you bullying noobs again?" At that moment, Xiao Yun cursed at Yifan, telling him to get out of the way because he was being a hindrance. Hearing this, Yifan didn't dare say a word, even though Xiao Yun was the one playing poorly. Ye Xiu continued his assault, launching an attack that knocked Xiao Yun into the air. Xiao Yun desperately tried to counterattack, but Ye Xiu flickered in and out of sight, infuriating him. At this moment, Ye Xiu was quite pleased to deal with this overconfident opponent. He moved constantly, seeking out the blind spots in his opponent's movement and launching attacks from there. Consequently, Ye Xiu easily juggled Xiao Yun in mid-air, as if playing a game of keep-up. Xiao Yun lost his temper, but Ye Xiu kept moving in all four directions, using aerial skills to keep him suspended. Boss Chen asked, "Can't that guy escape at all?" prompting Ye Xiu to ask whose side she was on. But Boss Chen felt the guy was just a beginner, so how could Ye Xiu be so heartless as to combo him endlessly? What if the poor guy got discouraged and never dared to play Glory again? Ye Xiu knew perfectly well that this guy was here to hunt him down, so he had no intention of holding back. He immediately executed an ultimate skill called Rising Emblem, finishing Xiao Yun off with a pillar of light that shot straight into the sky. Qiao Yifan hastily retreated to dodge, but he couldn't escape Ye Xiu's line of sight. Ye Xiu toyed with Yifan effortlessly, even intentionally floating in midair to provoke him. Yifan was too hasty and fell for the bait, allowing Ye Xiu to dodge his attack and smoothly smash him straight into the ground with a downward strike. Ye Xiu then dropped down, pinning Yifan and leaving him no chance to counterattack. However, Gao Yingjie appeared to support his friend. The two planned to team up and give Ye Xiu a beating, but before they could do anything, one of them was already pinned to the wall by Ye Xiu's lance. Seeing this, Gao Yingjie lost his focus and was consequently taught a harsh lesson by Ye Xiu. At that moment, Wang Jiexi arrived, bringing his entire guild to suppress Ye Xiu. Ye Xiu scratched his head in exasperation, wondering if they really needed to go to this extent. Wang Jiexi had initiated a training camp for his juniors to improve their skills. The first thing he reminded them to do was to defeat the boss. A team member asked the captain which boss he wanted to take down the most. Pointing directly at Ye Xiu, Wang Jiexi declared that this person was the strongest boss in the history of glory. He confidently asserted that he was 80% sure this person was the #1 battle god, Ye Xiu. Meanwhile, a major ice cream company was struggling to choose a glory pro player to serve as the brand ambassador for their upcoming product. Just then, television news reported on the rising achievements of the great gunner, Zhou Zekai. Hearing this, the company executives realized that the top-tier expert they had been looking for was none other than him. Consequently, Zhou Zekai was invited to Nirex's commercial, delivering a cheerful line enthusiastically endorsing the ice cream. From that day on, Ye Xiu faced Wang Jixi's juniors, challenging him every single day, but they couldn't land a solid hit on him and continuously suffered crushing defeats. Ye Xiu kept to his relaxed schedule, sleeping during the day and waking up at night to work at the cafe, while conveniently grinding in the game. Since he ran into Wang Jixi's group every day, it was no longer a surprise to see them bringing people to try and beat him. Meanwhile, after shooting his commercial, Zhou Zekai became famous everywhere. He was no longer just known in the gaming sphere, but was now the face of an ice cream brand. Wang Jixi's juniors greatly admired Zhou Zekai, praising his elite status. But Wang Jixi reminded them that if they wanted to reach that level, they needed to practice hard. Once they possessed high-level skills, the public's attention would naturally follow. With that said, he urged everyone to continue, as they had an appointment with Ye Xiu. Ye Xiu was already waiting there, telling them to bring whoever they had and charge at him all at once. Hearing this, the group thought he was being overly arrogant. However, Ye Xiu warned them to be careful, or else they would end up haunted by him every time they logged into the game. Wang Jixi remarked that Ye Xiu was far too overconfident. Yet, just a few taunting words from Ye Xiu were enough to get Wang Jixi fired up. He ordered everyone to attack together, casting their pride aside to gang up on him. Wang Jixi was determined to grant Ye Xiu his wish and ensure he wouldn't dare boast again today. Plantago Seed trailed behind to see how Ye Xiu would escape a 1 versus 10 situation. But Ye Xiu boldly stood his ground, choosing to face the group head-on. Wang Jixi was the first to charge, so Ye Xiu, having anticipated this, immediately kept his distance. Seeing this, Plantago Seed wondered why Ye Xiu didn't just run away from the start if he wanted to escape. Wang Jixi didn't allow him to, closing the gap and forcing Ye Xiu to leap into the air and fire his weapon. However, Wang Jixi's broom-riding maneuvers were so incredible that not a single bullet hit him. Ye Xiu continued to maintain his distance, frustrating the group, who complained that all he did was run. But Ye Xiu retorted that they were just amateurs who didn't understand that this was a tactical retreat. With that, Ye Xiu threw a smoke bomb, creating a smoke screen to separate the enemy's formation. Qiao Yifan attempted to attack him, but Ye Xiu dodged and knocked him far away. As a result, Yifan was harshly scolded by his team for attacking recklessly without coordinating with them. Meanwhile, Wang Jiexi and the team's mages continuously launched fireballs, bombarding Ye Xiu with magic, but he dodged the onslaught and used a burst of speed to slip away. This left Wang Jiexi and his teammates searching until their eyes strained, but they still couldn't find him. Yifan suggested that Ye Xiu might have logged off. Hearing this, the group was furious, condemning the action as cowardly and lacking any spine. The juniors asked Wang Jiexi if they should set up an ambush, but he said it wasn't necessary. Wang Jiexi reminded his team that the battle god Ye Xiu was someone they could absolutely not underestimate. Even though he had retired, his actual strength remained world-class. Wang Jiexi admitted that even he might not be a match for Ye Xiu, so the team shouldn't feel discouraged if Ye Xiu made them look foolish. He hoped everyone could bravely face failure, identify their weaknesses, and improve their skills. That was the primary goal of treating Ye Xiu as a practice boss. At that moment, Tang Ru walked over and asked what the commotion was about, as it looked fun. But because Ye Xiu was using voice chat on her behalf, one of the youths jumped in shock, thinking Ye Xiu was a guy pretending to be a girl to troll them. It turned out Ye Xiu had borrowed Tang Ru's account to challenge Wang Jiexi, He stated that fighting back and forth like this was truly exhausting, so they might as well have a friendly spar. Ye Xiu set a condition. They only needed to defeat this girl, and then they would earn the right to fight him. Ye Xiu sent a room ID to Wang Jiexi and told him to meet there. But Ye Xiu added another condition. If he won, Wang Jiexi had to provide him with specific materials he requested. As long as one person stepped up and defeated Tang Ru, they could challenge Ye Xiu. Knowing this, Plantago Seed thought Ye Xiu was quite cunning, wondering how he could possibly lose with Wang Jiexi's large group of teammates present. However, in the blink of an eye, Ye Xiu had already defeated another member of their group. After being defeated, Gao Yingjie quickly apologized to Wang Jiexi for losing so swiftly. But instead of reprimanding him, Wang Jiexi encouraged him, stating that Yingjie's performance wasn't bad at all. Even while at a disadvantage, he had constantly looked for opportunities to counterattack. That burning passion was exactly what Wang Jiexi wanted to see in his juniors. While he was always ready to encourage the others, Wang Jiexi used a harsher method on Qiao Yifan to force him to improve. Although he didn't want to admit it, Wang Jiexi felt that Yifan wasn't suited for his team. He believed that if Yifan changed his environment, he might actually flourish. Seeing Yifan duel, Xiaoyun expressed contempt because it took Yifan 3 minutes to defeat Tang Ru. Xiaoyun told him, "If anyone asks outside, don't tell them you're on the same team as us. It's too embarrassing." Hearing this, Yifan felt a bit hurt. But Ye Xiu then asked, "Is that you again?" Yifan hadn't expected the expert to remember him. It turned out that because Yifan had pursued Ye Xiu the most relentlessly, they had inadvertently become familiar with each other. Ye Xiu then asked if anyone had ever advised Yifan to change his class. Ye Xiu believed that with his current assassin role, Yifan wouldn't be able to utilize his full potential. Ye Xiu advised him to switch to the Ghostblade class, focusing primarily on supporting teammates. Yifan's ability to maintain a broad awareness of the battlefield was excellent, making him perfectly suited for this role. Ye Xiu acknowledged that making a change was truly difficult, but taking a risk was also a way to achieve results. After saying this, the two fought fiercely. Yifan's friends were also quite surprised, because his playstyle adapted so quickly. Meanwhile, Wang Jiexi was analyzing Tang Ru. She had lost consecutively, and was even defeated by Yifan in just 3 minutes. Yet, the youth next to him bragged that it only took him over 40 seconds to win against her. At the same time, Ye Xiu secured another victory without expending much effort. He taunted, "Big-eyed Wang, why don't you come down and try a match?" Wang Jiexi accepted, but he still had to defeat Tang Ru first, while Ye Xiu waited inside the room to see the outcome. Later, while Tang Ru was still fighting, she suddenly said, "Thanks, but I don't need it," to Wang Jiexi. Seeing this, Ye Xiu called out, asking what Wang Jiexi was trying to flirt with the girl on his side for. Wang Jiexi replied that he was just saying a few words. After defeating Tang Ru, Wang Jiexi entered the room, ready to clash with Ye Xiu. Ye Xiu asked, "Big-eyed Wang, do you need me to go easy on you so you can save face?" Wang Jiexi asked what the point of such questions was. Ye Xiu told him to just look at Huang Xiaotian and he would understand. It turned out that during matches, the chatterbox would incessantly ask his opponents questions like, "Do you even have any skill?" to the point of infuriating everyone. Wang Jiexi appeared calm but was actually a bit annoyed because he fell victim to that exact tactic from Huang Xiaotian every year, making his team feel like Ye Xiu was rubbing salt in their wounds. Plantago Seed could only hold on to his idol's autograph and cheer for Wang Jiexi with all his might. Though neither was in their absolute peak condition, both were ready for a serious duel. Wang Jiexi was the first to attack, launching a magic strike straight ahead. Ye Xiu, moving nimbly, slipped behind him and suppressed Wang Jiexi with his Gatling gun. But Wang Jiexi wasn't just skilled in magic, he was also highly proficient in close combat. Wang Jiexi and Ye Xiu then engaged in an incredibly intense melee, one wielding a lance and the other swinging a broom, with neither willing to back down. Ye Xiu tried to retreat, but Wang Jiexi wouldn't let him, immediately giving chase. Using his magical broom, Wang Jiexi successfully blocked Ye Xiu's path and threw a blinding powder at him. Unfortunately, Ye Xiu dodged it and used the terrain to make things difficult for Wang Jiexi. The arena then shifted, spawning rings of fire as the two opponents fought tooth and nail. Wang Jiexi struck first by infusing his broom with ice magic, riding it into the air to freeze the area below and lock Ye Xiu's feet in place. However, Ye Xiu broke free and launched a counterattack, fighting Wang Jiexi with extreme intensity. Watching this, Plantago Seed teared up, because After so many years, his idol had finally removed his seals and unleashed his ultimate playstyle. It turned out that Wang Jiexi had abandoned his bizarre, unpredictable playstyle long ago. Ye Xiu remarked that this was because his style was too overpowering, making it impossible for his own teammates to keep up. A player's personal style is an instinctual reflex, so very few pros dare to change it for the sake of others. Most try and fail miserably. But Wang Jiexi was a different case because his raw skill allowed him to make that sacrifice successfully. Since this was a 1v1 solo match, Wang Jiexi could freely unleash his full power without worrying about anyone else. The two of them completely tore up the arena, turning it into a desolate battlefield. To finish it, both Wang Jiexi and Ye Xiu simultaneously unleashed their ultimate skills, obliterating the entire stage. The result was a draw. Neither could claim victory over the other. However, Ye Xiu noted that Wang Jiexi looked like he was struggling, so he claimed he had gone easy on him a bit. Ye Xiu welcomed them to come visit more often. The others assumed Ye Xiu just wanted to use Wang Jiexi's juniors as a material farming machine. Hearing this, Wang Jiexi surmised that Ye Xiu was trying to level up and gather resources so he could return to the professional scene in a year. But his team pointed out that in a year, Ye Xiu would be nearly 30 years old. How could he still compete? Nevertheless, Wang Jiexi told them that they couldn't afford to be lazy. He hoped everyone would increase their training by fighting Ye Xiu like this. Keeping it up every night would definitely yield results. Although Ye Xiu was a bit boastful about his strength, his experience was incredibly worth learning from, and even his sarcastic remarks were things Wang Jiexi wanted them to absorb. Later, Ye Xiu asked Tang Ru about what Wang Jiexi had said to her earlier. It turned out he had wanted to invite her to his team and asked her to come for a trial training, but she had refused. Hearing this, Ye Xiu wished he could have seen the look on Wang Jiexi's face. Tang Ru then asked him how interesting professional players really were. Ye Xiu replied, "However interesting you find glory, the pro players are exactly the same." However, Ye Xiu told Tang Ru that she had great potential to play professionally. "Don't you love a challenge?" he asked. Meanwhile, after being advised by Ye Xiu, Qiao Yifan decided to research a new class. Although it would be very difficult, he still wanted to try and find the right path for himself. Sometime later, Steamed Bun found his way to Ye Xiu's internet cafe. He was holding a steamed bun and wore a highly rebellious street-style outfit. Seeing him, Boss Chen assumed he was definitely a troublemaker and wanted to teach him a lesson. The two stood in silence, engaging in a battle of auras to see who would yield first. She thought Steamed Bun wasn't afraid of her, but it turned out he had simply forgotten what he was going to say next, leaving Boss Chen utterly speechless. Steamed Bun pulled out his phone, intending to ask if Ye Xiu was around. Tang Ru recognized him, which made Steamed Bun overjoyed as he asked where his boss was. Ye Xiu stood up to greet him, but Steamed Bun immediately ran over and gave him a tight hug, acting as if they were long-lost relatives. Ye Xiu thought Huang Xiaotian was the only chatterbox, but Steamed Bun proved to be just as talkative. Ye Xiu could only sigh, never expecting this guy to actually track him down here. At that time, Zhou Zikai was sitting and reading the comments sent by his fans. Even the staff at Boss Chen's cafe were enchanted by this handsome pro player. Right then, Steamed Bun ran over to ask Ye Xiu where he had disappeared to. It turned out Ye Xiu was planning to help a team in glory. Tang Ru thought it was a team of amateurs, but Ye Xiu told her not to underestimate them, as they were the champions of the previous year. Steamed Bun then clung to Ye Xiu, asking, "Boss, where are we hunting monsters today?" Just then, a player named Seven Fields sent a message asking for his help. It turned out he was a member of the Full Moon Guild and wanted Ye Xiu to help his team break a dungeon record. As a result, it didn't take long for them to set a new record, which made Blue River anxious. But what was most shocking was that Ye Xiu only charged 4 pieces of Scarlet Moon equipment as his fee. Hearing this, Blue River refused to believe it, assuming it must have been 4 full sets. There was no way someone as greedy as Ye Xiu would take such a small amount. However, Bound Boat confirmed that he really only took exactly 4 pieces. Cold Knight and Plantigo Seed both knew about this and started messaging each other to discuss what Ye Xiu was planning. His prices were usually exorbitant, yet this time he asked for something that barely amounted to pocket change. In a group chat created by Cold Knight and Plantigo Seed, which included many top experts, everyone was baffled by Ye Xiu's recent behavior. Lonely Drink from the Samsara Guild suggested that they hold off on doing anything for a while to see what Ye Xiu's next move would be. However, right after saying that, Lonely Drink accidentally sent a message into the group chat asking Ye Xiu to boost him through a dungeon. He quickly retracted it and told everyone to calm down, claiming he just sent it to the wrong chat and didn't mean anything by it. Seeing this, the others teased him, saying that a brain is very useful and he should remember to bring his along next time. Shortly after, Ye Xiu and the Full Moon Guild shattered the Desolate Land record again, with a total time of 28 minutes and a few seconds. An embittered Lonely Drink messaged the expert group, complaining that Ye Xiu had refused his generous offer. Since things had come to this, he immediately rallied the players in the world chat to unite against Ye Xiu. The world chat instantly descended into chaos, filled with loud arguments. They claimed that any guild that had previously asked Ye Xiu for help was pure trash, and so on. Frustrated, Blue River blamed the idiots from the Full Moon Guild for causing this uproar in the world chat. Cold Knight was also furious because, despite sitting quietly, his guild took a stray bullet and was also labeled as trash. Blue River's subordinates urged him to quickly find a solution. However, Blue River was still worried, knowing that Ye Xiu could crush them at any given minute. He cried internally, wondering why the 10th server had to spawn a monster like Ye Xiu, turning everything completely upside down. On Ye Xiu's side, he led Steamed Bun and Tang Ru to Kongji City, a place in the 10th server specializing in selling weapons and items. Visiting for the first time, Steamed Bun acted like a child in a toy store, running everywhere and looking at items without buying anything. Ye Xiu told the two of them to shop to their heart's content today, making Steamed Bun continuously cheer in excitement. Tang Ru was not as impulsive and took her time selecting a battle lance. Since she didn't know which one to pick, she asked Ye Xiu for advice. He explained that the most crucial aspect of a weapon is how it feels in the hands. If attack speed and damage are well balanced, she would be able to maximize her power. In contrast, Steamed Bun showed Ye Xiu an incredibly expensive piece of equipment and demanded that he buy it for him. Ye Xiu asked if he had any sense of modesty. He refused because those vampire claws cost up to 800 gold. He would have to sell a lot of his own materials just to have enough to buy gear for the two of them. Did Steamed Bun want him to sell the shirt off his back too? Afterward, Ye Xiu went looking for materials to upgrade his weapon, but he coincidentally ran into an old friend from the Blue Brook Guild who had previously cleared a dungeon with him. Meanwhile, Blue River had teleported to the Heavenly Domain headquarters of the Blue Brook Guild. There, he and the others discussed Ye Xiu, the newly famous player in the 10th server. Having run a dungeon with him once, Blue River firmly asserted that Ye Xiu's game knowledge and experience were of a super expert level and could not be underestimated. The proof was that wherever there was a record, Ye Xiu's name was right under it. But a guild member with hair covering his eyes argued that he wasn't that formidable to be called a super expert. This person was one of Blue Brook's 5 great experts, and he wanted to transfer to the 10th server to see exactly who this newly risen expert was. He asked the guild leader not to worry and to let him go, guaranteeing that he would snatch the record back. Hearing this, the guild leader told them to quickly prepare accounts so they could conquer the Desolate Land. Blue River messaged Boundboat, asking if he was free to prepare an account for him, but Boundboat replied that he was currently haggling with Ye Xiu and wasn't free at all. It turned out the initial price was 4 gold, but Ye Xiu stubbornly refused and insisted on paying only 1 gold. Boundboat was furious because the materials Ye Xiu wanted were all rare items, yet he was lowballing the price so aggressively. Ye Xiu was still unsatisfied and raised the offer slightly, but Boundboat refused to sell, exclaiming where in the world such a shameless person came from. Because the trade failed, Ye Xiu had to leave and find another shop. After selecting their items, Ye Xiu asked the two of them if their new gear felt comfortable. Steamed Bun was thrilled, believing that bringing this equipment into a dungeon would look incredibly cool. Suddenly, Steamed Bun sensed the killing intent of an unseen enemy. Tang Ru didn't notice anything unusual, but Steamed Bun told her to trust him. He couldn't be wrong. After saying that, he ran off, not forgetting to grab a brick for self-defense. At that moment, the hidden person walked out casually. Seeing his opponent caught off guard, Steamed Bun closed the distance and threw a brick at him. However, after a brief exchange, Steamed Bun was knocked back by a slash. He praised the attacker for having some skill. It turned out this was Xiao Yifan after changing his class to a Ghostblade. He explained that he had come to study the terrain of the Desolate Land and coincidentally ran into Ye Xiu there. Thanks to Ye Xiu's guidance over the past few days, Yifan said his performance with this class was now quite stable. Ye Xiu told him, "If you want, you can come over here and practice with us." A Ghostblade's support skills can only reach their full potential when you have teammates who understand your intentions, so you need to practice in a team to get a feel for it. Yifan thanked him upon hearing this, but Steamed Bun wondered why he had sensed such intense killing intent if Yifan was so friendly. Ye Xiu assured him that his intuition wasn't wrong. Sure enough, right after he said that, the group was surrounded by enemies from all sides. Steamed Bun turned around and asked which guild they were from, demanding they state their names. They aggressively jumped down to engage Ye Xiu's group without saying a single word. Luna Grace, who had been observing, reported this back to Blue River. Blue River asked which guild it was, but Luna Grace couldn't identify them yet. From a distance, Cold Knight and Plantigo Seed were hiding and watching the situation unfold. Meanwhile, Ye Xiu decided to stay and test their skills to see what these attackers were made of. Tang Ru noticed their playstyle was very similar to his and asked if he knew this guild. Ye Xiu noted that their fighting style indeed looked familiar, and he might actually know them. Steamed Bun single-handedly fought a dozen of them at once without being taken down, even managing to suppress them entirely. Seeing this, Qiao Yifan cast a ghost boundary to buff Steamed Bun's combat power. Seeing Tang Ru's confusion, Yifan explained that it acted like a strengthening buff. Regardless of the class, being inside the ghost boundary maximized one's combat strength. Sure enough, Steamed Bun went wild, using his premium claws to beat them to a pulp. However, despite its overwhelming power, the barrier's duration was strictly limited to 20 seconds. Ye Xiu didn't need anyone to buff him. He drew his sword and cast an ice boundary, weakening the opponents with high-level ice magic. This gave Tang Ru and Steamed Bun the opportunity to break through, charging into the enemy encirclement and leaving them dizzy from the strikes. Wanting to join the fun, Ye Xiu rushed in to assist his teammates. He switched to the Gatling gun form and unleashed a barrage of bullets, killing the enemies on the spot before they could even react. Ye Xiu reminded the two to stay close and coordinate with the ghost boundary. As the enemies charged forward, a magic circle appeared beneath Ye Xiu's feet, making him feel like a tiger with wings. Alongside Steamed Bun and Tang Ru, they swept through the battlefield, putting the enemies at a severe disadvantage. Ye Xiu cast another ice boundary, creating an opening for his two teammates to close in on the enemies. Armed with her new weapon, Tang Ru confidently charged forward, wielding her battle lance against them fearlessly. Yifan also joined in, using his newly practiced sword skills to cut down several enemies. Meanwhile, Steamed Bun, despite having premium claws, still preferred his trusty brick, tossing it relentlessly at every single target. Not wanting to fall behind Steamed Bun, Tang Ru accelerated her pace. After being buffed by Yifan, Ye Xiu praised him for doing a great job. He then executed a series of combo attacks with his lance to finish off their leader. As a result, the entire enemy squad was wiped out by just the 4 members of Ye Xiu's party. Watching this, Luna Grace couldn't help but curse in shock, completely caught off guard by how formidable they were. He also noticed the Ghostblade. He hadn't seen him a few days ago, but now he was fighting alongside Ye Xiu. Luna Grace sighed, wondering how Ye Xiu could just casually recruit experts to his team like that. Right at that moment, a player cast Falling Light Blade, swinging his sword toward Ye Xiu, but Steamed Bun intercepted the attack, refusing to let anyone touch his boss. The attacker introduced himself as Poplar Beach from the Blue Brook Guild, and without another word, he initiated a fight with Steamed Bun. It turned out the Blue Brook Guild had come here to break the Desolate Land record but failed. After exiting the dungeon, they bumped into Ye Xiu, so Poplar Beach took the opportunity to demand a duel. Blue River and his guild members were observing the fight from a high vantage point. Luna Grace noted that with Poplar Beach's current strength, he was no match for Ye Xiu. Yet, Poplar Beach kept boasting that he could suppress Ye Xiu, even though he was currently fighting evenly with Steamed Bun, proving he truly didn't stand a chance against Ye Xiu. Ye Xiu stepped in to block an attack for Steamed Bun, then spun his lance and sent Poplar Beach flying several meters away. Seeing this, Steamed Bun laughed uncontrollably, advising Poplar Beach to change his name to Rolling Beach. Utterly humiliated and bitter, Poplar Beach demanded a rematch, but the guild leader quickly stepped in to stop them. He introduced himself as Changing Spring, the guild leader of the Blue Brook Guild. He admitted they had come to take the dungeon record, but had failed. Hearing this, Ye Xiu suggested that Changing Spring should bring Blue River along for the dungeon runs. Ye Xiu had checked their clear announcements earlier and noticed Blue River's name was missing. He noted that while Poplar Beach wasn't bad, Blue River would be a much better fit for dungeon coordination. Blue River smiled upon hearing this, but Poplar Beach remained bitter, telling Ye Xiu not to be so arrogant and challenging him to a 1v1 duel. With that, he had his guildmates announce the challenge on the world chat, forcing Ye Xiu into a corner where he couldn't refuse. Blue River felt that if Poplar Beach lost the solo match, it would be a huge hassle, but Luna Grace stated that his defeat was an absolute certainty, so there was no if. It turned out the despicable group that had ambushed Ye Xiu earlier belonged to the excellent Dynasty Guild. Their leader was Chen Yehui, Ye Xiu's former teammate. Back when Ye Xiu was the captain, he had criticized Chen Yehui for lacking talent and putting in zero effort, which led to Chen Yehui being reprimanded by the manager. Bitter and resentful, he wanted to crush Ye Xiu and prevent him from ever making a comeback. However, even after mobilizing dozens of players, they still couldn't achieve anything against him. After finalizing the duel appointment with Poplar Beach, Ye Xiu turned to discuss the dungeon strategy with Qiao Yifan. He explained that he had a method to break the new record, but it would require Yifan's help. Since Ye Xiu was nearing the level cap and wouldn't be able to run lower-tier dungeons much longer, he reminded Yifan that they only had 3 chances to succeed. Initially, Yifan was a bit anxious, but Ye Xiu placed his trust in him, reminding him that he was a professional player too. Touched by this, Yifan resolved not to let him down. Sure enough, after just one attempt, the team successfully cleared the Desolate Land dungeon with a time of 22 minutes and 35 seconds, shattering the 10th server's record once again. Afterward, Ye Xiu walked over and asked to borrow Boss Chen's game account. She asked what he needed it for. He explained that someone had challenged him, and he wanted to use her account for the duel. On another side, Huang Xiaotian was being asked by an acquaintance to connect them with an expert. Meanwhile, Ye Xiu and Poplar Beach had teleported to the Heavenly Domain Arena, where their duel would take place. Since Ye Xiu was using Boss Chen's account, Chasing Haze, his character's weapon was a heavy cannon. Feeling underestimated, Poplar Beach used Sword Draw to create 4 afterimages that simultaneously charged forward. Seeing this, Boss Chen warned Ye Xiu to be careful, but did he look worried at all? Ye Xiu praised the opponent for a decent display. He then lifted the heavy cannon and unleashed massive firepower at Poplar Beach, causing the afterimages to vanish. Boss Chen was shocked, yelling and asking if her character could even do something like that. Poplar Beach used Ye Xiu's shots to create an opening and close the distance, but Ye Xiu casually tossed the heavy cannon into the air, causing Boss Chen to confusingly yell at him. He calmly dodged the attack, circled around, and delivered a kick that sent Poplar Beach flying into the sky. What followed was a literal fireworks show as Ye Xiu bombarded Poplar Beach, ending the match in just 39 seconds. Afterward, the entire 10th server buzzed with discussions about Ye Xiu's combat prowess. Although the character was a launcher, everyone knew the person playing was him. However, this match also raised suspicions for someone in Huang Xiaotian's guild. Captain Yu Wenzhou could tell at a glance that Ye Xiu was an absolute veteran. The weapon-tossing maneuver and his clever positioning clearly indicated that Ye Xiu's skill level was god tier. Reviewing Ye Xiu's team composition for the dungeon records, Yu Wenzhou noticed that 4 of the members were consistent, but for every record, he partied up with a different expert. Yu Wenzhou theorized that Ye Xiu was hiring temporary help, and even guessed that Ye Xiu's character was being played by a substitute and a highly skilled one at that. Seeing this, Huang Xiaotian tried to sneak away to warn Ye Xiu, but Yu Wenzhou stopped him, saying, "Where are you going? Come back here, let me show you something." He pointed out that the time Ye Xiu broke the Boneyard record coincided with Excellent Era's match day. On that day, Liu Hao had put on a terrible performance, likely because he was distracted by the pressure of breaking the record. Yu Wenzhou saw that Liu Hao's dungeon strategy was quite effective, leading him to form a hypothesis. Huang Xiaotian tried to deflect the deduction, suggesting that Liu Hao might have been the one playing Ye Xiu's account. But Yu Wenzhou saw right through it, knowing Liu Hao was merely a thief. This strategy had appeared 3 times. The first and last times were executed by Lord Grim Ye Xiu's in-game character. The second time was by Hateful Sword Liu Hao's character. The probability of 2 different guilds coming up with the exact same strategy was extremely low. Thus, Yu Wenzhou believed that Liu Hao, as Hateful Sword, had stolen the strategy and used it to break the record. The proof was that the first run included Hateful Sword, but the third run featured a different member. Huang Xiaotian broke into a cold sweat, completely caught off guard by his captain's sharp deductive skills. He asked how Yu Wenzhou could be so certain. The captain explained that just by looking at Hateful Sword's playstyle, it was obvious Lu Hao was behind the keyboard. As for why he went to such lengths, Yu Wenzhou couldn't guess. However, Yu Wenzhou believed that if Lu Hao trusted Lord Grimm's strategy so implicitly, then Lord Grimm had to be a supreme expert. Otherwise, why would Lu Hao confidently emulate it? Having known Lu Hao for a long time, the captain knew that in professional matches, Lu Hao only ever listened to one person. From all these clues, the captain deduced that Lord Grimm was none other than the battle god Ye Xiu, and the player Flowing Tree, with his exceptional sword skills, had to be troubling Rain Huang Xiaotian. Realizing he had been exposed, Huang Xiaotian tried to play dumb. That name Flowing Tree does sound familiar. I think I've seen it somewhere. But unable to refute his captain's logic, Huang Xiaotian had to admit that he was indeed Flowing Tree. Yu Wenzhou then asked what weapon Ye Xiu used to clear the dungeon. From what Huang Xiaotian knew, it was a weapon Ye Xiu created himself. Moreover, it combined the strengths of all classes into one. It was a weapon whose absolute attack power rivaled the silver weapons in the game. The captain noted that the weapon was already top tier, and the person wielding it was Ye Xiu. It seemed he would soon get to see an unspecialized turn glory upside down. That evening, while Tang Ru was reading a guide, she noticed a picture of Zhou Zekai on Boss Chen's computer. Seeing this, Boss Chen commented that he was very handsome. Tang Ru didn't know much about him, so Boss Chen simply summarized that Zhou Zekai was handsome and the ice cream he endorsed was delicious. Curious, Ye Xiu walked over to see what Tang Ru was researching. It turned out to be an analytical post detailing Lord Grimm's playstyle. Ye Xiu initially found it quite interesting, but when he saw the author's name was Concealed Light, he was a bit surprised. Intrigued, Ye Xiu asked Tang Ru to send him the link to Concealed Light's profile. Meanwhile, after escaping his captain's sight, Huang Xiaotian messaged Ye Xiu to warn him that his identity had been exposed by his captain. Mid-message, Captain Yu Wenzhou walked in, giving Huang Xiaotian a heart attack. At that exact moment, Ye Xiu replied, "Your captain is indeed very skilled, it's just a shame about his hands." Seeing this, Huang Xiaotian frantically typed that his captain was standing right behind him. But Ye Xiu confidently replied that it didn't change the fact that Yu Wenzhou's hand speed was crippled. Instead of getting angry, Yu Wenzhou agreed that it was the truth. But Huang Xiaotian refused to accept it, turning into a keyboard warrior to defend his captain's honor. Yu Wenzhou then challenged Ye Xiu to a match, and Ye Xiu agreed without hesitation. Having set the appointment, the two immediately teleported to the fixed field, selecting it as their main arena. Yu Wenzhou's character was a dark magic warlock, which was also his main account. Ye Xiu charged in, aiming to close the distance and leverage his class advantage. But Yu Wenzhou cast a spell to widen the gap between them. Ye Xiu used his weapon as a shield and smoothly launched Yu Wenzhou into the air with an attack. But Yu Wenzhou was prepared and fired a dark fireball. However, Ye Xiu moved his mouse incredibly fast, successfully dodging the magic attack. He finally managed to close in on Yu Wenzhou. Even though Yu Wenzhou's character was a warlock, his flexibility in close combat was no less impressive than Ye Xiu's. Enjoying such an exhilarating match, the two only hoped the game wouldn't glitch so they could fully savor the fun. Ye Xiu got tired of melee combat, so he switched to his Gatling gun form. But Yu Wenzhou proved to be superior, using a dark shield to reflect the attack, forcing Ye Xiu to quickly dodge his own bullets. Seeing this, Yu Wenzhou wished he had hand speed like Ye Xiu's. Ye Xiu replied that if Yu Wenzhou had his hand speed, who would even be able to play against him? With that, Yu Wenzhou cast a massive territory expansion spell to finish Ye Xiu off in one blow, but Ye Xiu switched to the Gatling gun and used the weapon's recoil to propel himself high into the air. It was true that Yu Wenzhou's hands weren't as nimble as other pro players. Because of this, his attacks were highly optimized. A single keystroke would yield immediate and effective results. In no time, the entire arena was reduced to a pile of rubble from their fierce battle. They felt incredibly satisfied, as it had been a long time since they had a proper match like this. Yu Wenzhou remarked that the unspecialized class's advantages were indeed prominent, but its flaw was the lack of high-damage ultimate skills. However, he figured it wouldn't be a problem for Ye Xiu. Ultimately, the effectiveness of the unspecialized class depended entirely on the player. Yu Wenzhou confidently asserted that if Ye Xiu returned to the professional scene, he would definitely become their toughest opponent in the future. Hearing this, Huang Xiaotian closely reviewed the match they just had. He sat there imagining how many attacks he could dodge if he were in that position, but no matter how he looked at it, Huang Xiaotian realized he could dodge at most 3 out of the 21 combo strikes. He then accidentally logged into the game with his main account, throwing the 10th server into a frenzy as fans realized their idol was playing. Startled, Huang Xiaotian quickly pulled his card out. Otherwise, his inbox would explode with messages. He then logged into his Flowing Tree account and spammed Ye Xiu with duel requests. Naturally, Ye Xiu refused, saying he didn't have the time, but Huang Xiaotian insisted that Ye Xiu would need an expert to practice with. However, Ye Xiu told him to talk less and said he was off to do a quest. Huang Xiaotian was furious. How could a trashy in-game quest be more appealing than a duel with him? But Ye Xiu prioritized the quest since it was his livelihood, putting the duel off until tomorrow. After dinner, Ye Xiu called his teammates to log into the game. However, he didn't see Sumu Cheng online, so he assumed she was taking the day off. It turned out she had secretly sneaked into the internet cafe to see him, taking Ye Xiu by surprise. Afraid that Boss Chen might recognize her, he advised her to go to sleep since his shift was about to start. Boss Chen yawned and headed upstairs, leaving the two of them to chat. Sumu Cheng mentioned she was feeling a bit bored playing alone today, so she wanted to come over and find friends to play with. Ye Xiu found a computer for her and reminded her to log in, as everyone was waiting. However, Ye Xiu's team was currently being monitored by a mysterious guild. They read everyone's coordinates and divided their forces to track them. Ye Xiu quickly noticed the anomaly, but pretended not to know. Smug, the trackers followed Ye Xiu closely, but he led them into an alley and suddenly vanished. Seeing this, Sumu Cheng asked if he was also being hunted. She mentioned that she and Xiao Yifan were chased too, but managed to escape. She suspected Chen Yehui was behind this. Ye Xiu messaged the group to check on them. Tang Ru said she had been killed, while Steam Bun had luckily escaped. He yelled at Ye Xiu, asking why people were hunting him. But Steamed Bun was currently hiding very well, so they temporarily couldn't find him. Steamed Bun slipped into a village, leaving his pursuers clueless about where to look. One of them noticed something suspicious down a well and looked inside. But because the game's physics were highly realistic, he slipped and fell down. He tried to figure out a way back up, but a voice suddenly echoed, scaring the wits out of him. It turned out Steamed Bun was indeed hiding down there. He even claimed to be the demon king of the well, terrifying the poor guy. Steamed Bun was about to smash a brick in his face, but the guy explained he wasn't with the pursuers and that it was a misunderstanding. He had just fallen by accident. Assuming he was famous, Steamed Bun told him he didn't have time to sign autographs and to speak quickly. This guy turned out to be Concealed Light, the one who had written the analytical post about Ye Xiu. He sent a friend request to Steam Bun, which was accepted. Before they could say much, Steam Bun jumped out of the well, but the pursuers spotted him and gave chase. Concealed Light struggled to climb out, looking miserable. He had to sneak around, but as soon as he climbed up, he slipped and fell flat on his face. He was clearly an academic who understood game theory, but lacked practical mechanics. Meanwhile, Steam Bun was playing cat and mouse, constantly provoking his pursuers to catch him if they could. They were furious and determined to hunt him down to the bitter end. Concealed Light observed from a distance and guided Steam Bun through the map. Following his directions, Steamed Bun successfully escaped their line of sight. He hid in an abandoned house, but was startled when Concealed Light suddenly appeared behind him. Thankful, he praised Concealed Light for the directions, but Concealed Light shushed him, warning they weren't safe yet. Concealed Light noticed Steamed Bun's premium claws and asked about them. Steamed Bun said Ye Xiu wouldn't let him buy expensive things, so he was making do. Concealed Light was surprised, assuming record breakers would use top-tier gear. Ye Xiu then asked Steamed Bun if he had escaped. Steamed Bun replied he had been surrounded by over 10 people, but luckily met a good brother in the well who helped him. Ye Xiu didn't know who that was, but sent new coordinates to Steamed Bun, telling him to head to Line Canyon as soon as possible. Steamed Bun relayed this to Concealed Light, urging him to meet Ye Xiu, but Concealed Light hesitated. Steamed Bun suggested Concealed Light act as bait, running around to distract the enemies, while Steamed Bun made his way to Line Canyon. Before Concealed Light could even agree, Steamed Bun said his goodbyes and left the task to him. Knowing Steamed Bun would get caught the moment he poked his head out, Concealed Light told him to calm down and showed him a much safer route. Meanwhile, Suma Cheng had escaped her pursuers, but she noted that all of them were level 30 or higher. Ye Xiu realized a single guild couldn't have that many experts. It turned out they were an alliance formed by Cold Knight and Chen Yehui. When Blue River was invited to the group, he couldn't help but laugh at how these rivals had lowered themselves to cooperate. Cold Knight angrily told him to go eat chocolate on the street. The alliance included Herb Garden, Samsara, Blossom Valley, and Void Walk. Seeing the situation, Blue River asked what was so important that 7 major guilds had to unite. Cold Knight explained they were targeting Ye Xiu and invited Blue River to join them in bringing him down. However, Blue River was tired of the drama and chose not to take sides. Ye Xiu was the first of his team to arrive at Line Canyon, but Huang Xiaotian persistently messaged him, demanding a duel. Ye Xiu said he was busy and promised to make time for it tomorrow. Seeing it was almost midnight, Huang Xiaotian smugly warned him not to break his promise. Ye Xiu agreed, but less than a minute after midnight, Huang Xiaotian spammed him again, insisting on fighting immediately. Checking the time, Ye Xiu realized it was technically a new day, so he indulged him. He told Huang Xiaotian to come to Line Canyon, assuring him they would meet. Even though Huang Xiaotian's account was 4 levels lower than his, it would suffice. Shortly after, Huang Xiaotian arrived and asked where Ye Xiu was. Ye Xiu jumped down from a tree, greeting him. Just then, a mob of players rushed toward them, making Huang Xiaotian curse and ask what Ye Xiu was playing at. Ye Xiu joked that since Huang Xiaotian wanted a duel, he invited some brothers over to liven things up. Furious, Huang Xiaotian accused Ye Xiu of bullying ordinary players and asked what he had done to make them so angry. Ye Xiu replied that he had simply set an incredible record, and people were trying to sabotage him. Huang Xiaotian laughed at him, saying it served him right for a veteran pro to compete with normal players for records. Huang Xiaotian intended to sit back and watch Ye Xiu get payback, but the mob recognized him as the Blade Master from Ye Xiu's team and charged at him too. Annoyed, Huang Xiaotian ran, but seeing the mob ignore him to chase Ye Xiu instead made him inexplicably angry. "Stop right there! I'll teach you some manners," he yelled. He furiously chased the mob, constantly provoking them. But instead of getting angry, they found him incredibly annoying. One player couldn't take his trash talk anymore and drew his sword to shut him up. Seizing the opening, Huang Xiaotian swiftly unleashed a series of slashes, sending the guy flying. He continued to trash talk while simultaneously executing a dozen sword skills, leaving another opponent gaping in awe at the sheer brilliance of the swordplay. Huang Xiaotian finished him off, stating that was the price of underestimating him. Seeing only one guy left, Huang Xiaotian smiled wickedly. The guy was terrified and ran, but Huang Xiaotian chased him, his mouth still firing off at full speed. Noting his own sword was trash, Huang Xiaotian asked to borrow the guy's weapon. When refused, he beat him up and took it anyway. Just then, Ye Xiu tried to sneak attack Huang Xiaotian from behind, but he deflected it in time. Huang Xiaotian angrily asked why Ye Xiu had brought him to this wretched place. Ye Xiu replied that he came on his own accord. With that, the two immediately traded blows, but mid-fight, Huang Xiaotian suddenly slipped and fell flat on his face. Ye Xiu walked over and asked if he had just invented a new movement technique. It turned out he had run out of mana from chasing those 2 guys earlier, likely drained further by his excessive talking. Ye Xiu handed him some mana potions to recover, but the hunting party wasn't giving up and sent even more players. Ye Xiu stood his ground, sweeping through them with his lance. The beaten players complained in their group chat that this guy was too overpowered and his skills defied logic. They also noted that Flowing Tree was incredibly talkative, buzzing like a reincarnated fly. Someone compared him to Huang Xiaotian, but the group firmly denied it, insisting their sword saint was a classy professional who would never be that much of a chatterbox. Little did they know that the chatterbox and their idol were the exact same person. He repeated the same phrases so much he even made himself dizzy. Ye Xiu and Sumu Cheng couldn't help but laugh. The pursuers decided to send their entire force to Line Canyon to surround the two of them. They encircled Ye Xiu and Huang Xiaotian from all directions, cutting off their escape routes. However, as top-tier glory experts, it didn't take them long to spot the flaws in the enemy formation. Huang Xiaotian pointed out a weak spot in their defense that they could break through. Ye Xiu asked what he was waiting for, and the two dived in, tearing the enemy formation apart. Fighting 50 or 60 players at once made even Plantago Seed sweat just watching through his screen. Besides his flashy swordplay, Huang Xiaotian relentlessly mocked his opponents. Chen Yehui ordered a squad to flank them. The plan sounded solid, but after a short skirmish, almost all of his men were wiped out. Counting 18 remaining enemies, Huang Xiaotian confidently decided to stay and fight them to the death. The enemy leader, assuming the duo was trapped, confidently declared they couldn't escape. But just as he spoke, a massive artillery shell slammed into his face, sending him crashing down. Seeing his teammates arrive, Ye Xiu mockingly echoed, "You're surrounded, you won't escape." The enemies above were blasted by Suma Cheng's heavy firepower. Tang Ru, having revived, quickly arrived to help Ye Xiu clear the stragglers. Thanks to concealed light, Steam Bun also showed up in time, smashing heads with his trusty brick. Chen Yehui angrily demanded to know if his subordinates were capable of anything. They couldn't even block a girl. Before he could finish his thought, Huang Xiaotian appeared behind him, swinging his sword and warning him never to get distracted on the battlefield. Being lectured infuriated Chen Yehui, who fiercely fought back. But Huang Xiaotian's trash talk filled the screen with chat babaya, completely blocking Ye Xiu's vision. Ye Xiu told him to talk less, but Huang Xiaotian claimed it was an indispensable tactic. Then, Huang Xiaotian heard someone muttering nearby. It was concealed light, hiding in a corner, analyzing Ye Xiu's tactics. He was so focused, he walked straight into a tree branch and fell over, making Huang Xiaotian burst into laughter. He even accidentally bumped into Steam Bun, causing Steam Bun to take an unexpected hit. Concealed Light apologized and tried to leave, but walked face first into another tree. Steamed Bun noted that this smart guy had a weird habit of befriending trees. Ye Xiu sighed and told them to focus. Concealed Light sent Ye Xiu a party invite, making Ye Xiu feel exceptionally lucky today. But a customer at PC16 suddenly called for the manager, asking Ye Xiu to buy them 2 large ice cream cones. Ye Xiu agreed and asked the customer to wait. Then, the customer at PC24 called for assistance. Hearing Ye Xiu spout random things, Steamed Bun was confused. Tang Ru had to explain that he was talking to a customer at the internet cafe. The gamers in the match, however, mistook large ice cream cones for a secret tactical code Ye Xiu was about to deploy. But Ye Xiu had no plan other than fighting them all himself. They tried to shoot him, but he blocked it with his shield. Ye Xiu told the customer, "Wait a moment, it's coming," making the enemies think it was a signal. But Chen Yehui snapped at them, telling them they were idiots. It was obvious he was talking to an internet cafe customer, not issuing a secret code. Still, the enemies were astounded that Ye Xiu could tend to customers while fighting them. Ye Xiu then commanded Yifan to cast a ghost boundary to buff the team. Steamed Bun and Tang Ru dragged enemies into the magic circle to eliminate them one by one. The enemies realized Ye Xiu hadn't been using his full strength and was merely toying with them. 2 tried to flee, but Suma Cheng blocked their path with artillery fire. Huang Xiaotian asked Ye Xiu how many he had killed, stating that if Ye Xiu had fewer, he would lose the duel. Ye Xiu casually replied he had around 11, so Huang Xiaotian picked 2 nearby enemies to catch up. The enemies were speechless that their lives were being treated as mere mobs for score points. Upon reviving, they couldn't believe their defeat. Even Cold Knight's guild leader had joined the fight, but they still suffered a crushing loss. The world chat exploded as Ye Xiu wiped out every squad sent his way. They were furious that despite their alliance, Ye Xiu's group was still too overpowered. Steamed Bun felt invigorated, finding the battle extremely satisfying. Tang Ru wanted them to send more players so she could practice. However, Ye Xiu noted that if they dragged the fight on against such massive numbers, the enemies would eventually win through sheer attrition. To assert dominance, Ye Xiu wanted to run a dungeon and take another record. Huang Xiaotian complained, asking why he was prioritizing a record over their promised duel. He asked if Ye Xiu had any intentions of forming his own professional team. With Tang Ru, Steamed Bun, and Yifan all possessing genuine skill, did Ye Xiu really not have any thoughts about it? Hearing this, Ye Xiu finally paid attention to Huang Xiaotian's words. He fell deep into thought until Huang Xiaotian called out to him. Huang Xiaotian noted that while forming a team now was a bit of a pipe dream, preparing in advance might yield an opportunity a year from now. Just then, Steamed Bun announced that the boss for the Line Canyon dungeon had spawned. Ye Xiu immediately wanted to go for the record, but Huang Xiaotian refused, demanding a serious duel right then and there. Playing dirty, Ye Xiu called for a team vote, dungeon run or wait for the duel. Naturally, everyone except Huang Xiaotian voted for the dungeon. Ye Xiu said goodbye and promised to duel him tomorrow. Huang Xiaotian kept nagging, so Ye Xiu simply took off his headphones. Later, Cold Knight was depressed as his guild continued to severely weaken. He assured his guild leader that Lord Grim was definitely no ordinary player. Meanwhile, Ye Xiu treated Suma Cheng to a plate of mushroom-stewed chicken he had cooked himself. Looking at his teammates, he wondered what it would be like if he really formed a new pro team. Suma Cheng then fell asleep leaning on his shoulder. Ye Xiu smiled. Despite having his sister resting on his shoulder, his hands continued to furiously type on the keyboard. Seeing this, Tang Ru asked who the girl was. Ye Xiu replied that she was the launcher who had been playing with them the past few days. Feeling it was obviously uncomfortable for her to sleep there, Tang Ru offered to take Suma Cheng to her room to rest. Ye Xiu politely declined, saying this was fine. The next morning, two young men were looking to speak with Captain Han Wenqing, but when they entered the training room, they saw him harshly lecturing his juniors. Seeing them, Captain Han chased them out, stating he was busy. Fortunately, one of them found Zhang Xinjie in the dining hall and struck up a conversation. Zhang Xinjie politely asked to finish his meal first, as mealtime was sacred. But his aristocratic demeanor meant the guy had to wait an eternity for him to finish eating. He then pulled out a USB drive, stating there was a player in the 10th server named Lord Grimm. Understanding the implication, Zhang Xinjie opened it and analyzed the player with Captain Han. Being pro players, they could tell at a glance that Ye Xiu's party wasn't made of amateurs. Most notably, Ye Xiu's profound skills showed he had mastered every aspect of glory. Zhang Xinjie deduced that, aside from eating and sleeping, Ye Xiu probably did nothing but play the game. It didn't take Zhang Xinjie long to conclude that Lord Grimm was the battle god, Ye Xiu. However, Captain Han was skeptical, wondering why Ye Xiu would return after retiring. Yet, Ye Xiu's weapon astonished Captain Han. Zhang Xinjie pulled out two logging cards, suggesting there was no harm in investigating a bit. Meanwhile, Ye Xiu had woken up for his night shift and continued grinding in glory. He mentioned they would be short-handed today because Steamed Bun and Tang Ru had gone out with Boss Chen and hadn't returned yet. Yifan and Su Mucheng noted that the two of them could barely level up today anyway. Ever since the incident yesterday, they were hunted wherever they went. Even Ye Xiu was ambushed by enemies the moment he logged in, preventing him from farming monsters. It turned out Zhang Xinjie was a senior member of Cold Knight's guild, so he and Captain Han were already waiting for Ye Xiu to arrive. Having soloed an entire army of experts before, Ye Xiu wasn't afraid of a clash. However, Zhang Xinjie had analyzed Ye Xiu beforehand and read him like an open book. Every step Ye Xiu took was predicted by Zhang Xinjie. He commanded Cold Knight to use a specific skill to block Ye Xiu's projectiles. Just like that, almost every move Ye Xiu made was neutralized by Zhang Xinjie. Suma Cheng asked where he was, and Ye Xiu replied he was a bit busy. Zhang Xinjie flawlessly directed his team's formation, attacking Ye Xiu from all sides. However, wielding the most versatile weapon in the game, Ye Xiu managed to hold his ground. Hit by fire magic, Ye Xiu transformed his weapon into the Gatling gun to propel himself out of the magic circle. He charged forward again but was immediately caught in a pincer attack by Cold Knight and his teammates. But that was exactly what Ye Xiu wanted. Sensing something was wrong, Zhang Xinjie quickly warned the two, but it was too late. First, Ye Xiu cast a spell to trap their feet. He then jumped into the air to create distance, but Zhang Xinjie immediately cast magic to slow him down, creating an opening for Captain Han to deliver a straight punch to Ye Xiu's face. Taking the hit, Ye Xiu was knocked down a cliff. Captain Han closed in and relentlessly unleashed boxer skills, leaving Ye Xiu struggling to defend. Gathering power into his fist, Captain Han aimed to shatter Ye Xiu's lance, but the weapon suddenly transformed, disrupting Captain Han's rhythm and allowing Ye Xiu to gradually regain the upper hand. After exchanging blows, Captain Han realized Ye Xiu was indeed the battle god. He asked Ye Xiu why he had returned after retiring. Ye Xiu replied that he only retired. No one said he couldn't play the game. As they fought, Captain Han questioned his reason for giving up professional gaming. Ye Xiu explained he voluntarily stepped down because Excellent Era's performance was declining. Hearing this, Captain Han asked if Ye Xiu had forgotten everything he used to say. Had Ye Xiu lost his passion for glory? Back when glory was only a year old, Ye Xiu and Captain Han were the two great experts idolized by everyone. Their 1v1 duel was considered a massive event in the game. Later, Glory hosted its first tournament to celebrate its second anniversary. There, Ye Xiu signed with Excellent Era, while Captain Han joined the rival team. The two remained brothers, but stood on opposing front lines. Their showdown in the finals thrilled audiences, but Excellent Era took the championship under Ye Xiu's leadership. Finishing as the runner-up, Captain Han wasn't bitter. Instead, he grew even more determined, swearing to lead his team to the championship one day. But Ye Xiu reminded him that this was exactly what Excellent Era was aiming for too. Yet now, Ye Xiu was saying he wanted to quit just because the team was declining. Captain Han knew Ye Xiu's playstyle hadn't changed since the early days, so he easily read every strike, bringing the match to a stalemate. Ye Xiu counterattacked with dual swords, knocking his opponent away. Finally, Captain Han asked if Ye Xiu still wanted to return. Ye Xiu stated that it was a given. Hearing this, the two found no further reason to duel. Ye Xiu went outside to deeply reflect on his upcoming journey. He planned to stay hidden for a year, and then return like a king to reclaim his championship. And with that, the first part of the story comes to a close.